Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
Are you a victim of the timeshare trap and think there's no way out? I'm Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group, and I'm here to tell you that there is a way out. I will send you a timeshare exit information kit absolutely free, explaining how the timeshare industry works and your options for cancellation.
Get the facts. For your free timeshare exit info kit, go to iCancelTimeshare.com. That's iCancelTimeshare.com. iCancelTimeshare.com.
Kevin Mill in the morning. Don't forget our free KIDO Talk Radio app. We are live from New York City, just outside the United Nations. Of course, we're here, but we're always committed to serving Idaho. And speaking of Idaho, a great story on our website. Coach Pete interviews Ashton Jeanty. If you missed that on Big Noon Kickoff, we have that for you, plus the 6 amazing, breathtaking takeaways from Coach Pete and what we learned from Coach Pete and Ashton Jeanty. You don't want to miss that. Exclusively on our website, KIDOTalkRadio.com. Live to London. I feel very closer to our English wrestling brother, Jonathan Savage, this morning. I don't know if I can give you any diplomatic immunity, but we are from the United Nations, and you are live from London, and we are broadcasting in Idaho. So I think we've covered all bases. Good morning.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive, I have to say. How's New York today?
Mr. Savage, let me ask you, have you ever covered any, I guess NATO meetings, high-level meetings, or, Parliament or anything of that nature, like really, really high-level stuff?
Yeah, I've been to NATO, European Parliament, British Parliament, Scottish Parliament, a few of these things. They're interesting buildings, aren't they? They all there's a sense of calm around them that belies the sort of franticness that's probably happening behind the scenes.
Well, I don't know if I'd say that. I'd say it's pretentiousness, quite frankly. I've been to the Washington, D.C., broadcast from Congress, broadcast from the White House. But here, and we're actually at the hotel that the diplomats stay in. So I dress more like CM Punk, both in Idaho. And in Idaho, the people accept me for that. It's shorts and a long-sleeve shirt. And here, just like you would be the perception of, people are speaking French mostly. People are yelling into their 2 phones, and everybody is dressed in an immaculate 3-piece suit. It's quite a culture shock for, again, someone who usually drives in from Star, Idaho, and, you get your little coffee, not a latte, a coffee. So I wonder if you ever have that vibe being a man of the people.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the self-importance, I think you're getting that there, aren't you?
Yes.
I mean, I'm sure you can teach them a thing or two. When you spend a lot of time around that kind of environment, then you do notice that they live in a whole different world, a completely different world from a lot of people, especially from, in many cases, the people that they're serving.
Yeah, and it's really odd because most of us in America don't really vibe with diplomats. But again, last night I was walking outside. There's the Turkish embassy, this embassy, and, there's a massive police presence around here, obviously, because of the anniversary of the tragedy. And, but these people, this is their gig, and international deals are hatched. It's fascinating to bring that insight. Hopefully I can somehow do that professionally today, in Idaho. So let's get to the sauce, as we like to call it. Speaking of international stuff, Jonathan Savage, Ukraine strikes a Russian oil hub. As Zelensky says, the war is at a very important phase. What does that mean?
Yeah, Ukraine's been targeting Russian energy facilities. This is the latest attack. What they're trying to do is make it harder for Russia to support the frontline units in the east of Ukraine, where the main fighting is taking place, where Russia's effort on the battlefield is really putting a strain on Ukrainian forces. So what they're trying to do is stop oil products being shipped from this Fedosia oil processing terminal and try and prevent the Russian army being able to refuel and replenish, because the Ukrainian forces are in many ways outmanned and outgunned on the front line. It's difficult for them. They've been losing ground bit by bit, slowly but surely, to Russian attackers, holding out manfully in many ways, but Russia is taking a settlement, it seems, every single day. So because they can't always battle the Russians face-to-face on equal terms, they're trying to attack them from behind, essentially.
Well, indeed, and then you just wonder what would a solution be, and then the idea of the escalation, and Vladimir Putin. Let me ask you the tough question here on KIDO Talk Radio. How is he on holding on to power?
I think Vladimir Putin is in a very strong position generally in Russia. He has done a lot of things to cement his position in power. I mean, from controlling the media, essentially, to changing the law to prevent people saying the truth in many cases. For example, you have to call what's happening in Ukraine a special military operation. You can't call it a war. And then there is the killing and jailing of opposition figures at home and abroad, people who have been poisoned or otherwise shot in the head, essentially, in many cases, by people acting allegedly on behalf of the Russian state. And politics in Russia, very difficult to mount any kind of challenge to Vladimir Putin. But he is, of course, not going to be there forever. So wondering what's going to come next for Russia, I think, is a game that a lot of people play.
What about Zelensky? What about his power? Is he stable?
He seems to be pretty stable. I think it's a brave country that changes their leader while fending off an invasion. Because Ukraine is under martial law, essentially, with a state of war, they've put off elections, so he hasn't had to face a presidential election for some time. But I don't think, again, there's necessarily an obvious challenge to him internally, because I think there's a fear that if they were to change things internally, that would be seen by the Russians as a sign of Ukrainian weakness.
Tough question for Jonathan Savage, more like Hell in the Cell, but how has Zelensky survived?
He says that Russia has tried to assassinate him multiple times since the start of the war 2.5 years ago. And it seemed in the early days there were some attempts. We're told that it got fairly close to finding their mark. I think he survived because partly we've just got into a situation where Russia won't obviously and publicly try to attack him, but also because he is well protected by a fairly advanced security system, close security system around him, and he takes incredibly great care. He does travel the world, but he takes great care in doing so.
Jonathan Savage, anything else we should be looking out for?
This weekend in Ramstein, Germany, is going to be a meeting of Ukraine and all its allies. President Joe Biden is expected there, although there's some talk about whether with the impending hurricane he might put this visit off. But this is an important meeting. Volodymyr Zelensky, we understand, is going to present his victory plan to his allies, and he's also no doubt going to call again for the right to use Western weapons to attack Russian targets on Russian soil.
Boy. Again, the world is burning. Jonathan Savage, watched Bad Blood yet?
Sorry?
Have you watched Bad Blood yet?
Oh, I have seen it, and before we get to anything else, I think that was in Atlanta, Georgia. There's some bloodthirsty people in Atlanta, Georgia. They were going crazy for that quite violent Hell in a Cell match at the start of the show.
I would say they're very crazy in Atlanta. Anything else, any review you'd like to give us?
It's nice to see The Rock back. It's always nice to see The Rock back. And I wonder whose side he's on. That's my question.
Jonathan Savage, again, it's very, very nice. We miss Idaho right now, but it's very nice to be a little closer to you than usual.
Yeah, I can feel the presence. Take care.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. By the way, this segment of the program brought to you by our friends at Window World Boise. Window World Boise, you're going, Kevin Miller, I don't need new windows. Look, it's getting colder. Are you tired of the drafts? You want to save some money on your energy? Just check them out, windowworldboise.com. They do an excellent job. Great guys. Our friend Yo, we've known him for years. We used to work together, and we're working together to insulate the Miller home. So we will give you the unvarnished, uncensored experience with Window World Boise. Phone number's here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Let's start with a little national news. Again, we apologize for the travel day, but we did travel from one part of the continent to the other, one part of the country to the other. Here is the vice president explaining what she would do if China decides to invade Taiwan.
Attacks Taiwan. Would we use military force to support Taiwan?
Bill, I'm not going to get into hypotheticals, but listen, we need to make sure that we maintain a one China policy, But that includes supporting Taiwan's ability to defend itself, including what we need to do to ensure the freedom of the Taiwan Strait. We need to make sure we have open lines of communication with China, in particular, military to military.
Yes, military to military. There we have it. Kamala Harris giving us I'm not going to get into hypotheticals, which is the smartest answer any politician can give. Of course, we have another disaster on the way, another hurricane. And as we say before, and we do want to thank the Godless Corporation for giving us the freedom of expression, we do want to thank really the Godless Corporation for allowing us to do this, because in its entirety, it may say the Kevin Miller Show, but it is a property of the Godless Corporation. No, they haven't put me into a room. They haven't said anything. They just, again, it's always good to acknowledge people. And I don't know about you, but the older I get, the more I seek to do that. Now, I will tell you here where we are. We're at the UN Hotel. And it's not the UN Hotel, it's the Hilton with the Hilton Inn, United Nations, one United Nations. And literally less than a block away, it's the actual United Nations. And as I was talking with Jonathan Savage, it's very different. Like in Idaho, as I said before, it really ruins you for people. And what I mean by that, and I say this to the people that have been there in our great state, been here, I guess it's tough for me, but been in Idaho for their entire lives. It's why so many people move to Idaho, and why sometimes people try to ruin it. Maybe not deliberately, but by speeding or tailgating or not getting rid of their California plates. And you understand just people are very nice. And people accept you the way you are and how you look. And I can remember coming to Idaho 15 years ago, and I was, I wanted to be I always had this style of, suits and blah, 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 and, the goatee that wasn't all gray and all sorts of things. And now I just have this long hair and I look like a beatnik, but people take me seriously. So in New York, as I said, you literally, having broadcast from the White House, having broadcast from Congress, you still have normal people, although highly educated. But here, you have people that live in their suits. Everything is very serious, and it has to be. For us, when we look at something on TV, these diplomatic relations, it's fascinating to see that these people, this is their jobs and this is their livelihood, and they don't turn it off. And having seen this in, my brief, we've been on the ground here not even 24 hours, and just having seen this vibe, it's a cultural experience. And like I said, every time you leave Idaho, it just makes you appreciate it. So personally, we'll have a travel day on Thursday, but we'll be back in our beloved homeland very soon. And again, we'll take your calls at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Back to my compliment of the Godless Corporation. We need to pray for those people that are in the Carolinas, in Georgia, in Florida, in Tennessee. And we mean this with all our hearts. Can you imagine the fear, the utter fear of what's going on? And then you have Tampa Bay, having been there a couple times, is a very, very affluent, nice place. In fact, you remember, those of you that have been with us a long time, we did the 2012 GOP convention from there. And it's a beautiful place. And the fact that this storm of the century is going to hit, and now watching CNN last night, they're blaming everything on climate change. Well, that is unproven. And maybe we should just put more ice cubes in the water. I know that's an oversimplification, but let's just focus on saving lives. And when's the last time that you were ever in fear of something? I can share with you something in fear. The older I get, it's really weird. One time when I gave blood, I didn't eat ahead of time. Now you look at me and go, well, you should have enough glycogen reserves that you should be okay. Kevin Miller, seriously, you should have enough glycogen reserves that you should be okay. And ever since then, I get weird. I almost passed out, or I did pass out, so I get claustrophobic, which is weird. So I'm in this plane. And, you pay good money for planes. And all of a sudden, I'm in the front of the plane because I'm a big baller. And, no, I'll just be paying for this for the rest of my life. So, and they put me in the window. And all of a sudden, man, it was just the anxiety. And thankfully, there was a guy next to me that he was one of those, like, Seinfeld characters that he didn't stop talking. And he was an affluent businessman. He's going to India, and he can kind of sense something was wrong. I go, hey, man, do you mind if I just switch to the aisle? I got to have the aisle, man. It's one of those real-life things that I'm going, I'm a 56-year-old man. How can I have this panic? Now, that was just being in a plane for an uncomfortable position. Can you imagine, and this is why I urge you to pray for these folks, those people that have been afflicted, those people that are living in fear, that, you know, you talk about the panic and uncertainty, and because we have, and I don't even want to blame social media, we have television that makes us live in this world where all this disaster happens and it's so flippin' normal. It's not normal. So the least that we can do is pray for those people in Tampa, in Florida, across the country that are hurting, and say, by the grace of God, there go I, Lord, please help those people. And I would tell you this, I used to laugh at Lee Joe. I used to laugh at Tea Party Bob. I think it's time to start focusing in on how to be more self-reliant. You know, in Idaho, you know, we've had these fires. And I don't know if you recall, I was very critical of the Idaho Power position where all of a sudden that, you know, if there's a fire, we're going to shut off everything. We're going to shut everything off. So over the summer, if you lived in Boise, your power was shut off because something happened in Ketchum. It was all on the circuits. And I'm thinking, look, we live in a world where that shouldn't happen. But if that's happening with us and we've got these fires, and all of a sudden around Harris Ranch and everything, you're thinking, dude, I got to go? What the blank? And I believe that fires are something that we can control. We can't really control a hurricane. But it's time to take a look at being self-reliant. And thank you, Tea Party Bob, for letting us know that the the Napa Costco is out of toilet paper. I know toilet paper is a commodity, but toilet paper is made in Idaho. And I don't know why Costco can't keep the toilet paper rolling, but that's ridiculous. Pretty soon we're going to have to recycle toilet paper. Welcome to California. But my point being is there are several things that we watch this passively because we're so overwhelmed. And being people of faith, we've got to get back to just loving America and loving ourselves. And, you know, obviously a little sacrifice called prayer for our fellow Americans. And, of course, those people in Russia, Ukraine, Israel, and everywhere else. God bless you, everybody. Hey, look, I can talk for 4 hours, but I'd love to hear from you. Your thoughts on the vice president. Now we're hearing, oh, the race is over. Hey, does that sound familiar? By the way, my scratchy voice will be solved in a minute as soon as I have a quick cup of coffee. Back with you. We'd love to hear from you next. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Thought to be one of the most reliable jobs in the country, fast food jobs. But in Idaho, they are going away. Find out why now on our website, KIDOTalkRadio.com, a story that we put up. And speaking of jobs going away, some excellent reporting from Wendy Culverwell and David Statz, I believe, from the Idaho Statesman. Here's the headline. A Boise area French fry maker slashes jobs and leaves potatoes unused. And you take a look at, what is it, Lamb Weston Holdings. Apparently, they are the number one supplier of value-added potato products in North America. They're eliminating jobs, slashing $100 million in capital spending, and leaving contracted for potatoes unused as it loses market share, as its sales suffer from menu price inflation, according to the company. Now, again, I was looking at this, and like I said, we always want to compliment good reporting, but this happened in July. This story from the Idaho Statesman. Wendy Culverwell, Idaho French fry giant, sued over artificially inflated share prices. Stock drops 30%. I guess their headquarters is on Eagle Road and State Street. I'm trying to think of where that would be. I know where Pet IQ is, but I'm trying to figure out where that is. But apparently, potatoes are costing more money. You don't have to go to McDonald's to figure that out. And by the way, these guys are a big deal. They actually supply the potatoes for McDonald's. A supply and demand imbalance in North America and ongoing inflationary environmental necessities, these difficult steps must be made in a Tuesday release. By the way, it's weird when you think about this. Why can't they just say, dude, they use these big words. And, you know, big words are great. There are a lot of people around here using big words. And, you know, I'm just sitting here looking at this going, really? Why can't you just say it's Bidenomics? The cut represents 4% of Lamb Weston's global workforce of about just under 11,000 people. They employ 1,000 people in Idaho, according to the Idaho Department of Labor, blah, blah, blah. And you think about, hopefully, that this isn't going to come back to haunt too many people, and how these companies really, really respond to this. And you're thinking, why wouldn't you want a potato chip or a French fry? But again, I think about this, and this is going on all over the world, all over the country, and certainly here in Idaho. And you have to, when you slash $100 million in capital spending, and you're going to leave these contracts, I mean, are they going to pay for the potatoes? If they've already paid for the potatoes, why don't they donate it to the Boise Rescue Mission, the Idaho Food Bank, St. Vincent de Paul? Why don't they do that? Wouldn't that be, worthwhile? I know a lot of people look at doing that, but why not? Why not make a difference? It is 6:28 with Kevin Miller in the morning. We do want to thank our friends at Window World Boise for, again, being a sponsor of this program, and find out how Kevin Miller will save money on his windows, how you can too, by contacting our friends at windowworldboise.com. Now, we were talking a little bit about FEMA dollars, and the Department of Homeland is spending billions of dollars on migrants, and everybody's going, well, this is wrong, this is horrible. Now, remember how the media treated President Bush for Hurricane Katrina when Shepard Smith was yelling at Sean Hannity, people are dying here, Sean. And yeah, Katrina was horrible, but every night it was negative. And if you watch any of the shows, every night they talk about how great FEMA is. And then you have people, and even CNN did this, and you listen to Clay and Buck and Glenn Beck, I mean, he's in North Carolina, or at least he was, where you have these people that are spending their own time, their own money, flying their own helicopters in there. And the big point to me is it disinformation to tell the truth? What is it, a utopia, dystopia age where the government is blatantly lying to us? And look, I'm not one of these people that say you should believe it, but when you characterize everything as disinformation, well, tell me, who has the motive to lie? Why would people in North Carolina or South Carolina, the bad Carolina in my book, why would they lie? Who has the motive to lie? If you're a parent, a grandparent, or an elder, or somebody who, you have to pick a side. It's always, in Law and Order, they say it's always goes back to the motive. So really, who has the motive? And you look at this incredible, just unbelievable negative coverage or negative cover-up of the incompetence of Biden and Harris.
Other question to you, I think, is about this misinformation. Do you think this is a time to put falsehoods aside, like the idea that FEMA funds are being redirected to migrants, which is just not true?
Well, it is true that FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security have been spending billions of dollars on migrants. I understand some people say they're separate funds, but we just passed a short-term spending bill. It's very common for the administration to come and ask for permission to move money between funds, especially to prepare for emergencies. And second, I would note that this administration seems to have no problem finding money when they want to spend it on their priorities. When they need hundreds of billions of dollars to pay off student loans for graduate students in gender studies programs, they somehow find it. When it's trying to get helicopters to deliver food and water and cellular service and life-saving medicine into these mountain valleys, they somehow can't seem to find the money.
Boy, Tom Cotton is so good. Glenn and Nampa, we're going to get to you first. Traffic and weather together, KIDO Talk Radio. Let's get Nampa, the first call of the morning. Hey, Glenn, we do have to conduct a little business. I know Lee Joe is looking for you. Did he reach out to you on Twitter?
Yep, I got a hold of Lee Joe. We're working on the back channels to help him out with his project.
Okay, well, he was giving me a tongue lashing on the text and blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, you can't DM me. And I go, look, man, we're all Twitter challenged except for Glenn. Just reach out to him and he'll get a hold of you. So I'm glad that we've solved that problem.
Yeah, it was funny because actually I thought he was DMing me, but he was just posting.
Yes.
You brought up an important point this morning. You were talking about preparedness and being prepared. And if you look at what's going on, what happened in the East Coast with the last hurricane and the hurricane coming now for Florida, and I understand here in Idaho we don't have hurricanes, but there can still be earthquakes, other things Nampa, we got the train tracks right through town. If we had a derailment similar to that one in Ohio where it had the toxic spill, there's things that could displace us. There's things that could cause us problems here in Idaho, and we need to be ready for it. And being prepared could be as simple as every week when you go to the grocery store, buy a couple of extra cans of canned goods, buy an extra case of water bottles. You look at whenever they have to evacuate in Florida, all the gas stations run out of gas. So it could be as simple as never let your car get below half a tank. And then if you get even one 5-gallon gas can, keep gas in it. Once a month when it's time to fill up your car, put that gas in your car and refill the gas tank when you fill up to keep it rotated. Just simple things that you can do every day to help be prepared for an emergency. A lot of people, everything got washed away and all their important documents are gone. Could be as simple as taking pictures of documents with your phone, keeping them on your phone, transferring them to a thumb drive so you have copies of all your important documents. It's not that hard, and it's sad that a lot of these people are having a hard time because they thought the government was going to take care of them. And honestly, I don't think the government cares. To them, we're just a source of money. So,
well, I think we're seeing that in North Carolina. And then, we come to this whole state, Glenn, where, we have these conflicting narratives where people are using their own helicopters at their own expense.
And I have seen the videos. I've seen a lot of the different posts on Twitter. And, there's a lot of amazing people in this country that are willing to help, that are willing to share. And yet sometimes it seems like the biggest obstacle is the government. Government regulations. Well, you can't fly here because of whatever. People are trying to help. And, Ronald Reagan said the government just needs to get out of the way and let people do what they need to do.
Yeah, I would say that, but I think what we're seeing here is, you don't believe your lying eyes from the government when you have people going in and doing these things, and then you have people saying everything is fine. And if you listen to the clip by Tom Cotton, you can find money for your special projects, but you can't find money for Americans.
Oh yeah, right after the hurricane hit on the East Coast, here comes Kamala posting about how they're sending 170 million to Lebanon to help people that are being displaced because of what's going on there. But yet they only have $750 per person or per family to help out with hurricane relief from Helene. And it's just outrageous because I have no faith in the government. I hate to say it, but I just can't do it anymore. It's like I'm in an abusive relationship with the government. They're mentally abusing the American people. You look at what happened with COVID and all the lies that they told, talking about masks, talking about the vaccine. It just seems to go on and on where it's been proven time and time again that the government is not honest with the people. They do not tell us the truth. They tell us what they think we want to hear or what they want us to hear to try to put themselves in the best light. And instead of just being honest and saying, hey, COVID is bad, we don't know what it's going to do, they just start making stuff up. And, I don't believe anything they've got to say. You look at what happened with the Hunter laptop. They had 50 or so intelligence officials that said, it's government or Russian disinformation. You have now all these different people coming out. You have this group of economists that say Kamala is going to be better. You have this group that says that. And, they're appealing to authority to try to get people to follow along. But Americans are supposed to be independent, self-sufficient, and free thinkers. And I think that's really the difference between the right and the left is the left, everybody toes the party line and falls in, and the Republican side, we're kind of a train wreck sometimes because everybody wants to go their own way, and we don't unify necessarily like the Democrats do. Sometimes it's to our detriment, but a lot of times it's to our benefit because we like that freedom of ideas. We like to be able to exchange ideas and learn from each other instead of just spouting what we're told.
Glenn, we appreciate that. Thank you, brother. And, bro, this is a very different vibe than Idaho here, man.
I've heard New York City is different. I've never really had a desire to go there. I just can't imagine being a place where it's just all buildings and concrete. That does not sound like a place I want to be. I want to be able to touch grass.
Well, it's not only that, but there's New York, and I've never been to the United Nations before. So I've been to the Waldorf, I've been to the Plaza, I've been to all these places. And again, this is radio that brought me here, nothing else. But here, I mean, it's like obviously because these are all the flippant embassy people that are the diplomats. And it's, you watch them on movies, and then when you're seeing them in real life, it's such a different world from, people driving in their pickup truck on their way into work in Idaho. I'm trying to bring that picture back home, but I'm struggling with it. And frankly, Glenn, they're struggling with me. They don't like the guy with the long hair and the beatnik look here. It's 3-piece suits or nothing.
Yeah. Oh, it's definitely a different vibe, Kevin. I went to high school just outside D.C., and I had a classmate that was British, and his parents worked at the embassy, and he had a diplomatic immunity card. And this is no joke. The teacher got mad at him and tried to give him detention, and he pulls out his diplomatic immunity card and says that they can't detain him because he's the son of a diplomat.
Wow.
The whole attitude, the whole vibe is just some of these people feel like they're untouchable.
Well,
they can do whatever they want.
I know, man, and and you try to be nice to them, and they don't talk to you. Like I'm in an elevator, go hi, and they all just look at me. And I mean,
they're scared of you, Kevin.
So I go to this breakfast place downstairs, and it's funny because there are places you go where you dress up, and usually in a hotel, you're like, whatever. This is called the Ambassador's Lounge, and these guys are on their way to the UN, and they're all in their 3-piece suits, and they're all suited up. And it's not like Idaho's suited up. This is like what people wear all the time, and that's great. I think it's wonderful, and it's a great cultural exchange. So I go and I said, I just like a cup of coffee. You can go to the coffee shop. It's a lot cheaper for you. I go, oh, okay. Well, thank you very much. We'll be on my way.
You as the help, Kevin.
I don't think I'm even dressed good enough to be the help. So that happened to me in Tampa for the RNC. They looked at me and said, the food service workers, literally. The food service worker line, sir, is 100 yards down the block. So it was great to be with, it did. It happened to me in Tampa. And that's when I had a semi-clean cut look. Glenn, you're right about being prepared. We appreciate you. Take care, sir.
Yes, thanks for the time, Kevin. And just people get ready. It's easy to do. It just takes a little bit of effort. And the only one you're helping is helping yourself.
Glenn in Nampa, thank you for the call. Phone number's here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. More coming up. Don't forget Sean Hannity with more hurricane coverage, with more election coverage. Hard to believe we're 28 days away from the big one. Are you ready? Sean always is, right after Clay and Buck on KIDO Talk Radio.
KIDO Talk Radio. Waking up on the right side. This is the Sean Hannity Morning Minute.
When we learned last week that they ran out of money, and they're trying to back off this, and they're lying, because it's on FEMA's homepage. They haven't even taken it off the homepage. So all these people have been entirely wiped out and abandoned, and Harris is pledging millions of dollars to Lebanon and other places around the world. And I'm not making any of this up. You can't make it up. I mean, if you look at FEMA, as we have been telling you the truth about FEMA from the beginning and their shelter and services program, and but now they're going to spend what, $150 million that they're sending to Lebanon? You got to be kidding me! $150 million? That's a lot of money.
From coast to coast, from sea to shining sea, it's the Sean Hannity Show.
The best home improvement projects are the small, easy-to-tackle ones that make a huge impact. And now's the perfect time to score a touchdown with Blinds.com. They have their huge primetime kickoff event going on right now, one of the biggest of the year, with up to 50% off select styles and huge doorbusters. Enjoy massive savings on custom window treatments, everything from woven wood shades to blinds to curtains and so much more. You can talk to a Blinds.com professional design expert today. You'll get free samples shipped directly to your home. They make it simple. They make it fast. They make it easy, and all of that is free. If you need help with measuring and installation, Blinds.com has you covered there also. And no matter how many window treatments you choose, installation is just one low cost. Got Blinds.com's primetime kickoff event. It's happening right now. Save up to 50% off on selective styles and huge doorbusters. That's up to 50% off select styles when you go to Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Thank you, Sean Hannity. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Don't forget our friends at Window World Boise, taking your phone calls about the issues that matter to you. Phone number is 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Let's get back to this Tom Cotton clip because I think it's very important. I don't think it's very important. It is very important when you have remember, the Biden administration has said that they've gotten enough money, that everything is fine, that everybody's being taken care of in North Carolina. And remember, how bad it was when President Bush was running the show. Now, let me give you a few headlines. Department of Homeland Security announces $380 million in additional funding to communities receiving migrants. New York City to get $104.6 million from FEMA for asylum seekers. FEMA awards $110 million to the emergency food and shelter programs to assist migrants. Now, as you can see or hear, do true believers on KIDO Talk Radio, that's where the money is going. And Senator Cotton on Meet the Press explains it to all of us how you can funnel money from, it's a business thing. You go from one shell corporation to another, and you don't think that the federal government knows how to do the shell game?
My broader question to you, I think, is about this misinformation. Do you think this is a time to put falsehoods aside, like the idea that FEMA funds are being redirected to migrants, which is just not true?
Well, it is true that FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security have been spending billions of dollars on migrants. I understand some people say they're separate funds, but we just passed a short-term spending bill. It's very common for the administration to come and ask for permission to move money between funds, especially to prepare for emergencies. And second, I would note that this administration seems to have no problem finding money when they want to spend it on their priorities. When they need hundreds of billions of dollars to pay off student loans for graduate students in gender studies programs, they somehow find it. When it's trying to get helicopters to deliver food and water and cellular service and life-saving medicine into these mountain valleys, they somehow can't seem to find the money.
Doug in Mountain Home with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning, Kevin. So what do you think of where you're at?
What's that?
I say, so what do you think of where you're at? You want to live there?
It's a very different world than Idaho, sir.
Yeah. So are you going to be listening to everything that's going on in the UN meeting?
They do have a feed for the public, so possibly.
Yeah, pay attention. I know you will. Listen to the in-between line stuff. So what you just said earlier, quite a bit earlier, about they're saying the race is over. So what are they saying? Oh, she's ahead by a couple points in all the swing states and da-da-da-da-da. Is that what they're saying?
Yes, they are. And, she's gone from 47-47. The latest poll is 49-46.
Yeah, and who's 46? Trump?
Yes.
Yeah, right. They got to lie like what they're doing, Kevin. Just remember back. They just got to be just a few points ahead and on their lies. So when the election and they've got all their freaking lying, fake freaking vote, you know what I'm trying to say, freaking crap coming in, then go, well, she was ahead the whole time. I mean, there ain't no way that freaking lying piece of you-know-what can be ahead, especially since all of this has happened in some of them swing states, Florida, Georgia, North Carolina. Yeah. And they're just using this. I mean, don't ever let something like this, you know, like an emergency situation go without, you know, using it. I know I can't remember how they word it, and I'm pretty well tongue-tied.
Never let a crisis go to waste.
There you go. And you can bet that they're going to do everything they can so it's North Carolina and Florida and probably Tennessee and Georgia that, oh, hey, man, yeah, the votes, we ain't going to be able to use their votes. They're going to find something. These are the most lionest freaking, I could go on and on and on and on. I mean, it's plain as the nose on my face. And on these illegals coming in, Kevin, I mean, that's plain as the nose on my face, too. They're getting rid of the American people, period. They're going to get rid of the Americans, and I'm not going to say no colors, but right now, it don't matter what color you are. If you're an American, they're going to get rid of you, period, and replace them with what they've been bringing in, and then they'll get rid of them. So,
Doug, great call. Thank you for the call. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Be with you here from Idaho, across the country, in New York City, talking about the issues that matter to you. Speaking of which, some great stories on our website. Coach Pete, remember we reported last week, Coach Pete came into town, and you're going, man, this Chris Peterson's in quite a bit. I know he's not doing more commercials for the Kendall Auto Group, but he was in town actually conducting an interview with Ashton Genty, and Genty mania has taken over the town, and people that don't even know what a Heisman is. Genty, yes, Genty. And big props to the folks at Boise State for their outstanding work. They're back ranked in the polls, 37,000 fans. I mean, it's a sellout, which is fascinating to think about when you take a look at the malaise of the program for the past several years and what's really going on right now. Will they achieve something? Well, economically, it is great for the community. Now, again, ideologically, whether you agree with the academic settings, you agree with what happened with Big City Coffee and the lawsuit, hopefully we can all put that aside for a moment and really just focus in on some good economic news. And it's great that all the gig workers, all the people that work at the stadium, they've got some great great paychecks coming in. And by the way, I did this article, and again, unlike most articles on our website, which are really well written, I actually did some original research and found out the number one item sold at the stadium, the number one food item sold at the stadium, and you know, just what it takes to feed all those people. Now, if you're like me, you're one of those people, you go from zero to freak, like this morning when the folks from England, I believe, England or Germany, kept ordering croissants and had to explain what you charge to your room and what you don't, as opposed to I just want my cup of black coffee so I can go. But really the behind-the-scenes dedication from our friend Security Guard Mike to the concession stands to all those people that make that happen. So that article is available on our website at KIDOTalkRadio.com. Also if you didn't see the interview with Chris Peterson from the Fox pregame show, Big Noon Kickoff, we have that for you. Plus, if you don't want to watch it, we have the 6 compelling takeaways. So that story and much, much more always available on our website or through our free KIDO Talk Radio app. We are offering a free App Yap special right now. You can get the app on your Google, that's your Android, or your Apple phone for free. Now, that offer is in limited time only. No, it is. You can get it for free all the time. Anyway, thank you for joining us. very blessed to be with you. Kevin Miller, The Morning We Are, saying please pray for our friends in the Carolinas, in Florida, Georgia, Tennessee. We have gotten so used to these tragedies that we just turn on the channels and here's another one. It's like that old Don Henley song that's actually older than our friend Bo. No, it's not older than you, Sweet William. You know, Dirty Laundry. You know, I make my living on the afternoon news or what have you. Give your money up, get your money down, blah, blah, blah. Don Henley does such a great job with that song, but that is what we've tuned into, the disaster in our country, the wars in Ukraine and Israel, and everything else. If we sound a little different, no, we're not broadcasting from Star. We are here at the United Nations, literally hanging out, broadcasting from our room at One United Nations at the Hilton, getting ready for the NAB Marconi Awards. And once again, it's a privilege to represent you. For without you, we would not be honored for the fourth year in a row as one of the best radio shows in America. And everybody says, Kevin, I hope you win. Look, I win every day by being with you. And yes, I may be a cranky curmudgeon, as Dave Petzo will reinforce next hour, but it is a blessing in this age of everything else that you make time for us. You make time for me, and I am so honored to be able to represent you. And if you haven't been listening or following us, we've got some photos on our at Kevin Miller Show, at KIDO Talk Radio on social media, where it has been a very culture shock because I've never been around diplomats, and the diplomats here they take themselves very seriously, and everything is at the highest standards. And it's not like Disneyland, I'll tell you that. And having been to, the Hayes Adams and other elite places in Washington, whether it's the White House or Congress, this is probably the most unique experience I've had, where it's a very different culture where you have people in the lobby, actually, one from Zurich, one from this person, and, you go, hi, and they just kind of look at you. Yeah, it's been that kind of trip. But again, in all seriousness, we never know how much longer we have with each other. And I always remember our old friend Larry Gebert, a beloved meteorologist on Channel 7. And we will honor Larry till the day we die. And he was a guy that he was invulnerable. And then the Lord said, Larry, it's time for you to go. And I know his family, Julie, and his sons, his daughter-in-laws, I think his grandkids now will always remember that treasure. And we always have to appreciate what we have. And Larry inspires me to this day. And I'm sure you have this on your phone where, the time of year comes up. And for me, it's always around Miller's Mission, both Miller's Missions, where we have Larry coming up with Reverend Bill. And we will always honor him. He was truly a person that was so smart. He could have been a scientist or a business guy, but he chose to make his living on television. He chose to make his living going out and doing goofy things. And I can remember being dressed up as a turkey, and it's like 5'8" Kevin Miller on a good day and 6'6" Larry Gebert jumping around, dancing, being goofy, all to raise awareness for the Boise Rescue Mission. And those of you that do that in the quiet anonymity, you are the real heroes. So thank you. And we urge you to pray for those folks throughout the country that need inspiration and to understand that they are truly not alone. It is fascinating when you take a look at where we are when we've decided to make disaster relief. We've decided to make disaster relief political. People have gone after Governor DeSantis, and we'll start with our first clip of the day. By the way, I want to thank our friends at Hoagland Meats. They're a new sponsor of the program. If you are looking for the best chicken, when we're talking about raised and grown in Idaho, pork, my mouth is watering as we talk a little bit about this. Steak, with, no added water, purely air chilled, no antibiotics ever, raised and grown and produced in Idaho. Hoagland Meat, the code is Kevin Miller, receive 10% off. They have the Harvest Hall giveaway. Go to their website and click here and learn how to enter your chance to win $2,000 worth of local products. They're out of Homedale. We have been to their facility. It is great. And by the way, maybe you want to roast, 2 roasts of your choice, 3 packs of stew meat, 6 pounds of ground meat. You don't have to go somewhere and aggregate it yourself. Hoagland Meats, welcome to Idaho and welcome to the Kevin Miller program. Let's get now to Governor DeSantis, who has been accused of not answering the phone when the vice president is called, from our friends Fox and Friends. Remember, when you hear Fox on the radio, you're listening to KIDO Talk Radio.
Kamala Harris called you selfish. She said she's tried to contact you to talk to you about hurricane relief. And I know that you've said, I think you said she didn't try to contact you. We want to get your response. But first, listen to what she said. Well, we don't have the sound, but she said, moment of crisis, if nothing else, should really be the moment that anyone calls himself a leader, says they're going to put politics aside and put the people first. People are in desperate need of support right now and playing political games at this moment in these crisis situations. These are the height of emergency situations. It's just utterly irresponsible, and it's selfish, and it's about political gamemanship. What's your response?
Well, I think she should look in the mirror. We've been on an emergency footing for 2 weeks straight, round the clock, 24/7. We've been working, my office, our Division of Emergency Management, helping people prepare for Hurricane Helene, helping effectuate rescues of people after Hurricane Helene, helping people pick up the pieces of their lives after Helene, and then have to also turn around and prepare for major impacts and maybe even more impacts from Hurricane Milton, be able to have rescue personnel ready to help people, and then, of course, help with the power restoration, all these things to do. So that's been my sole focus. My focus has not been on dealing with Kamala Harris. I saw the news report. I didn't know she tried to contact me. But I'd also say it's not about you, Kamala. Right. It's about the people of Florida. My focus is exactly where it should be. And I can tell you this. I've worked on these hurricanes under both President Trump and President Biden. Neither of them ever tried to politicize it. She has never called on any of the storms we've had since she's been vice president until apparently now. Why all of a sudden is she trying to parachute in and inject herself when she's never shown any interest in the past? We know it's because of politics. We know it's because of her campaign. I have zero time to entertain these political games. We're going to continue to do what we need to do to prepare and respond to what may be one of the most damaging storms in the history of the United States. So she says focusing on protecting your people is selfish. I think she ought to look in the mirror.
And right now, Governor, just to conclude, you have what you need from the federal government as well as you feel like you have the resources in place. Is that correct?
Every request we've made, and I've been in contact with the president. I've been in contact with the FEMA director. It's interesting. Harris is not even in the chain of command. Yeah, what is she even doing? Role in this. I mean, the idea that I should be worrying about her when I'm focused on the task at hand is just quite frankly absurd. So yes, all of our requests have been answered. We have marshaled all state resources that are available to us. It's going to be a very robust response, but it's going to be a lot of damage, and we're bracing for that. I'd ask everyone to keep us in your prayers. We know we're going to get hit, but hopefully we can pray that this storm will weaken and do the least amount of damage possible.
All right,
absolutely.
Well,
great job out there.
And there we have it from Governor DeSantis, who makes a great point that a lot, of course, the national media is not going to make. Vice President Harris is really not in the chain of command. Vice President Harris is not the go-to person. And as we said before, the news media is so scared of Donald Trump. The news media is so scared of everything else that they are just all in with the lies and the distortions. By the way, I'm very jealous of the people in Star and Boise last night. Apparently, you could check out the Northern Lights. Now, from what I understand, I tried to check out the Northern Lights and I missed it by a day. But once again, another beautiful night of the Northern Lights here in the Treasure Valley, which is simply amazing. One of the great reasons to live in Idaho, just the sheer beauty of it. We are live in New York, taking your calls at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. So here we have an example of effective leadership. And then it was 60 Minutes, and I don't really blame Donald Trump for not going there. If people aren't going to give you a fair shake, why do it? So here is Governor Walz, as we call him, Minnesota Waltz, who, hey man, he's asked by Forrest Whitaker, or Bill Whitaker, not to be confused with Forrest, both on TV. Bill Whitaker saying, hey, man, why do you lie?
And about his travels to Asia in the 1980s. In your debate with J.D. Vance, you said, I'm a knucklehead at times. And I think you were referring to the time that you said that you were in Hong Kong during the Tiananmen Square unrest when you were not.
Yeah.
Is that kind of misrepresentation, isn't that more than just being a knucklehead?
I think folks know who I am, and I think they know the difference between someone expressing emotion, telling a story, getting a date wrong rather than a pathological liar like Donald Trump.
But I think it comes down to the question of whether you can be trusted to tell the truth.
Yeah, well, I can. I think I can. I will own up to being a knucklehead at times, but the folks closest to me.
Okay. I believe that I am the Tim Walz here in New York City. So we've talked a little bit about, you go to a place, you ever really, not in Idaho because no one has ever really underdressed in Idaho, but here we're with all the diplomats. And you do have, and I'm wondering why people that are just tourists here that stay at this place, because it's really just a great facility for diplomats. And diplomats are doing diplomatic things for diplomatic reasons, and we could go into it way over my head. But now I know when they see me with the long hair, when they see me with the Idaho shirt and the shorts and everything else, this is not a place for tourists. So if you've ever gone to a dinner party, if you've ever gone to some type of place and maybe it's church, maybe it's somewhere else, and you think that it's, or you go to a costume party and you think it's a costume party and it's not, and you're very embarrassed and you go, man, I'm a knucklehead. But can you imagine Tim Walz negotiating with Z or Xi or we or Putin or Schmootin or Bootin? And he goes, hey, man, I'm a knucklehead. Now, in Minnesota that works. I can't see any of our Idaho politicians ever saying, I'm a knucklehead. I mean, are you an idiot or are you a liar? 580-5436, 580-KIDO. And I love how Whitaker just looks at him and goes, you're lying. You're lying.
Trusted to tell the truth.
Yeah, well, I can. I think I can. I will own up to being a knucklehead at times, but the folks closest to me know that I keep my word.
Walz proudly touts his record as governor of Minnesota. But it also has opened him up to criticism from his Republican opponents. Former President Trump said,
okay, his defense, I'm an idiot, but I'm not as bad as Donald Trump. Really? Really? Wow. Okay, more coming up next as we count down to the election. And is anybody really surprised that the media is saying it's over? Thank you for listening. We'd love to hear from you next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Is it? By the way, this portion of the program brought to you by our friends at Hoagland Meat. Free delivery of fresh, local, clean beef steaks, pork, chicken in Boise, Eagle, Meridian, Caldwell, Nampa, and the Treasure Valley. So if you want clean, fresh, Idaho-produced meat, Hoagland Meat. They actually have salmon here, too. Is that right? Oh, that's pork. Thank you, Sweet William, for letting me know that. But chicken, pork, all sorts of great things. Save 10% off by typing in the code Kevin Miller, HoaglandMeat.com. We really appreciate them joining us on the program, allowing us to come to places so exotic as One United Nations Plaza. How we just shared with you moments ago, and the 60 Minutes interview with Tim Walz. Now, remember the vice president? There are a lot of people that you can schmooze and you can, I don't want to say jive because you can't say that anymore unless you're at a comedy club. You try and bluff your way out of something. One of the things that, and I talked to Tom Gresham about this once, and I said, I always like to think of the work behind the scenes like marketing. And you might know this guy. He moved to Texas. We really lost him years ago. But Jeff Caves, former Bronco radio broadcaster, and he and Bill Lister from Lister Frost years ago, Bill Lister and Jeff Caves since I've been in the Treasure Valley, two of the most brilliant people that their minds are just made up of marketing. And I can remember years ago, and a lot of people do this, and, you know, I don't tell my wife, but I have about like 15 domains that I'm going to use to you know, free the world or whatever. You know, make a gazillion dollars because, you know, your GoDaddy says, buy the domain and start your program. Of course, you have to start the program. I digress. So I was looking at this one domain and I go, man, I could do a show on guns. But you have to know about guns. And I love Tom Grisham, man. That guy is awesome. If we could talk him into coming down and just doing a town hall on guns would be so wicked cool. You got to listen to his show live at noon to 3. It's so good we run it again 6 to 9, tape delayed. But you can watch it live and you can call in on Sundays or listen to it live. And just learning so much about the intricacies of guns and weapons and everything else. You don't want a buffalo or hornswoggle or whatever the verb is, people that have been in the military. I always feel, I don't want to say bad for people, but it's just something you don't cross when you make up something. Well, I was in the 114th. Oh, you were? And where were you stationed in blah, blah, blah? Well, I was in Africa. Sure you were, buddy. It never ends well for people that lie about their military experience or they make it up. Remember, there were a lot of people that made up that they were veterans, like Tim Walz and others. So here we have the vice president, which is the oddest transformation that we've ever seen in modern times. It reminds me of the comedian, or if you ever watch The Office, where 1 minute Michael gets caught bad-mouthing somebody, gets caught bad-mouthing Ryan to the big boss. And he's, hey, Ryan, I was with you all the time. And it really is like the vice president, Kamala, where she's trying to be all things to all people. She's the most liberal senator ever, including Bernie Sanders. But now she says she wants us to believe with a straight face that she has a gun. So CBS's Bill Whitaker said, tell me about your gun.
Turn here, but you recently surprised people when you said that you are a gun owner. And then if someone came into your house...
That was not the first time I've talked about it. That's not the first time I've talked about it.
So what kind of gun do you own, and when and why did you get it?
I have a Glock. And I've had it for quite some time. And, I mean, look, Bill, my background is in law enforcement. And so there you go.
Have you ever fired it?
Yes. Of course I have. At a shooting range. Yes.
Yes. So she has a Glock. Now, you know, it's funny because she will sit there and go back and forth at 580-5436-580-KIDO. Do you think she told those folks in Berkeley that she had a Glock? Do you think when she was hanging out with AOC and Bernie Sanders, does anybody really believe that she's a gun-toting Kamala?
Hard left turn here, but you recently surprised people when you said that you are a gun owner. And then if someone came into your house... That was
not the first time I've talked about it. That's not the first time I've talked about it.
So what kind of gun do you own, and when and why did you get it?
I have a Glock. And I've had it for quite some time. And, I mean, look, Bill, my background is in law enforcement. And so there you go.
Have you ever fired it?
Yes. Of course I have. At a shooting range. Yes.
Well, no, I thought you were stuffing and cuffing people. And thank you for Sweet William for letting me know that. It's when, if you ever watch The Office, or you can watch The Office, not on Netflix, on Peacock. It's when, and how many, has this ever happened to you where you think you're talking to somebody in private and then all of a sudden the person you're talking about is right behind you? Oh, the embarrassment. It's like when Michael was talking to David Wallace or about Ryan, and then Ryan's on the line. Now, again, I think it comes down to, do you feel with your head or do you feel with your heart? If you feel with your heart, you go, wow, she's not Donald Trump. She's nice. She carries a gun. She's going to fix the economy. Well, who messed up the economy? Think about that for a moment. Let's get you to work safely and on time. You're listening to KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin. Video app, some great stories, great fun, great excitement. It's great. Subaru Jerry, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Good morning, Kevin. One reason I don't watch any of these interviews with these lefties is because nobody ever drills down on the issue. For example, he asked her about the gun thing. Well, I own a Glock. Well, he should have followed up and said, oh, really? What model of Glock do you own? Is it a Model 19 or whatever? Well, not even lead with that. Just say, what model do you have? I guarantee she wouldn't be able to answer because she doesn't know anything about it if she does have it. She might have got it when she was a prosecuting attorney and thrown it in the drawer at home, and there it's been sitting for 20 years or who knows. And the same thing goes with the question of, well, I'm gonna give everybody a $25,000 down payment for a house. I'm gonna give everybody $6,000 to have a kid. I'm going to pay for all their medical care. I'm gonna pay for all this. The guy says, oh, really? How are you going to pay for it? She says, well, I'm going to tax the rich. Oh, okay. Let's move on to the next question. What he should say then is, well, we've actually done some research, and we found out that if you confiscate all the money that the rich people have, not just tax them more, that it wouldn't be a drop in the bucket, and it wouldn't come near close to paying for what you're talking about. So now, having said that, what's your next step here? But they don't do that. They just let them ride unless it's Donald Trump. And then they interview him. He answers the questions straightforward, toe-to-toe. And then afterward, they come on and say, now here's the list of lies that Donald Trump told. I don't watch 60 Minutes. I haven't watched them for 20 years.
No, but I go back to, you make such a great point. And Bo and I were talking about that during the break. I mean, even a gun neophyte like me would go, oh, I have a Glock. Well, really? Tell us what kind of Glock it is. What's the ammunition? What's this, that, and the other? They didn't follow up, but I mean, everybody's going to say a Glock. I have a Glock.
Yeah. And then when they find out she doesn't own a Glock, she'll say, oh, I thought you said clock.
Well, is she going to bring her Glock to the White House? Does she have it in the vice president's quarters? Has she registered it with the Secret Service?
Well, she probably very well might be able to. They can't even figure out where a bag of cocaine came from.
Yeah. And this is the tragedy of the media. And we've said this for years, and I don't care what anybody says. Walter Cronkite was a liberal. They've always been this way, but they've never been as out as they are now. They've come out of the closet. They've been closeted. Not anymore, sadly.
Yeah. It is sad.
It is. And the whole idea that Harris is moving ahead. As I said before, you have to be a complete moron to vote for her. A complete moron when she says she's going to change things. Well, change things, you are part of it.
All she's got to do is go on The View, and she's got half the country watching.
Well, they don't have to believe her.
Why do they?
Because they're dummies. Subaru 5436 580 KIDO. Let's go to Pro. Pro Life joins us now on KIDO Talk Radio.
Yeah, good morning. Hey, it's amazing how I can hear you so quickly, clear across the country. But anyway, what I want to talk about is these hurricanes that are coming here. And it's amazing that we had one and then another one's following it almost in the same path. Now, when I was young and before even I was born, back in 1941, people prayed about the weather. The farmers would. And now you don't even hear anybody saying that God can control the weather, control the storms. And that really shows where we're at. People don't have faith in the whole world. And you'd think that somebody, would be saying, let's have a national prayer to turn these storms away. But they don't do that. And Governor DeSantis could do that. President Trump could do that. I don't think the Democrats, of course, they're not going to do that. But anyway, that's a real indication of where we're at, and we need to just know that there is a God and there is an eternal justice, and we need to get with it and find out about this God. You know, Jesus Christ was resurrected. He lived, and
well, that's why we're urging people to pray for these people.
Yeah,
at the very least, pray.
Yeah, I know. You can have nothing, but you could pray for your neighbor. And
you could pray for your neighbor. You could pray for a stranger.
Yeah, they're all our brothers and sisters. We are actually all children of God, and we need to look at it like that. It doesn't matter what ethnicity, color, or whatever we are. People all have a conscience, and they can all understand that there is a God, and that He's a real person and relates to us. And this trial right here that we're going through on earth is to see what we will do outside of the presence of God. And people are failing. The whole world's failing. That's because we're peer pressure oriented and people aren't independent. So we need some independence at least to turn to God right away, so it might lead some other people, and maybe we can get the whole situation turned around, but it's not looking good. And so we will fail if we continue to murder our babies, allow any kind of sexual perversion, and defy natural law. You know, when you say pharmaceuticals are better than herbs, that is really pretty serious. But that's where we're at, and we think that you can eat anything and you're going to turn out all right, and you don't have to have God's kind of food. So I hope that we can come out of this. I'm praying for that. For Kevin.
Well, and we appreciate the prayers. Pro-Life, thank you for the call. 580-5436. 580-KIDO. I mean, really, somebody asks you what kind of gun do you have? I think you're going to get specific. Bill Whitaker asking the vice president on CBS News, CBS is 60 Minutes, what kind of gun do you have?
Hard left turn here, but you recently surprised people when you said that you are a gun owner. And then if someone came into your house...
That was not the first time I've
talked
about it. That's not the first time I've talked about it.
So what kind of gun do you own, and when and why did you get it?
I have a Glock, and I've had it for quite some time. And, look, Bill, my background is in law enforcement. And so there you go.
Have you ever fired it?
Yes. Of course I have. At a shooting range. Yes.
Sure. Do you believe her? 580-5436, 580-KIDO. And if guns are so bad, as the Democrats have told us for years, why is she endorsing carrying a weapon? And is that registered in California? Can we prove that? Like the McDonald's story? Is that asking too much? Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. 436-580-KIDO. Really looking forward to hearing how great everything is as far as the stock market, but what about the real market? And again, earlier we were talking about an Idaho-based company, Lamb Weston, laying people off because they've lost, $100 million, which is pretty wild. When we take a look at the blessings that we have today, we are urging people to pray for those folks in the disaster area and those people about ready to be hit again. Last night on CNN, here you had Caitlin Collins talking to the mayor of Tampa, who was pretty blunt about it.
This is literally catastrophic, and I can say without any dramatization whatsoever. If you choose to stay in one of those evacuation areas, you're going to die.
Wow. I mean, that is an incredibly blunt message. And I know you have a lot of experience dealing.
Well, I mean, what are you going to say? If you do not get out, you are in big trouble. You're going to die. I mean, please do the right thing and leave. It's common sense. Of course, how many of us would leave behind everything? Because in our minds, we're thinking, we can make it.
With these storms, you don't say something like that lightly, Mayor.
I've never said that. And 10 to 12 foot surge, I mean, if this takes a jog to the south, that's going to save us from the storm surge. But it stays on the track that it's projected to be on right now, or if it goes a bit north, would be even worse. Some of the predictions are saying that Pinellas County, to the south of us, the entire county is going to be underwater. So this is something that I have never seen in my life.
Now, many of you will say, well, Kevin Miller, this is the biblical. These are the biblical prophecies coming to fruition. We'll talk about that in a minute. First, KIDO Talk Radio. Let's get you to work safely and on time. Our great friend Dave Burnett is standing by. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning, Kevin. From the G&G Installation Studio, traffic on the freeways. You're coming out of Candy County into Ada County just before the county line, finishing cleanup of an accident right there at Robinson on the left-hand side, and still working that rollover crash in Cuna. This would be on Cuna Road between Meridian and Locust Grove. Beat the cold weather and get a new high-efficiency heating and air system from Perfect Plumbing Heating and Air. For a limited time, get $1,500 instant rebate on select systems. Visit callperfectnow.com. That's your traffic now on KIDO.
That Dave Burnett, Dave Petzel coming up, and I believe Lars Larson will join us. Of course, taking more of your phone calls here at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Do appreciate our friends at Hoagland Meat, hoaglandmeat.com, for sponsoring the program. If you want clean, fresh, local beef, steaks, pork, and chicken, they service the entire Treasure Valley. In fact, you don't have to get it from out of state. You don't have to get it processed. You don't have to get it anywhere except locally raised and produced and processed right here in the Treasure Valley. HoaglandMeat.com. 10% off with the code Kevin Miller, and they've got a great giveaway going on at their website. Click and learn how to enter for your chance to win $2,000 plus worth of local products. And my favorite box, just looking at this, the stew and roast box. Check them out at HoaglandMeat.com. Of course, here's another great one, Natural Idaho Pork Box. Want to talk about giving a gift to somebody? How about giving them the gift of pork from Hoagland Meat? Think about that. Here's a little take on Hillary Clinton.
Well, Hillary Clinton said the quiet part out loud, calling on social media companies to moderate content before the election.
If the platforms, whether it's Facebook or Twitter X or Instagram or TikTok, whatever they are, if they don't moderate and monitor the content, we lose total control. And it's not just the social and psychological effects, it's real harm.
Can you believe that? Hillary Clinton and others have been floating this trial balloon. And if we didn't have Glenn Beck, if we didn't have Sean Hannity, Lars Larson, Clay and Buck, can you imagine the social media companies that shadow ban 95% of the conservative stuff? Can you imagine the world we're living in? And that's where they're going, where they're saying the First Amendment needs to have limits because of disinformation. Well, please tell me, what is the disinformation? Please tell me what is that people in North Carolina are not getting food and clothing? That's disinformation, or is that the truth? By the way, let's go to the Yap Yap Club. Kevin Kamala is lying about owning a gun. You can tell by her nervous cackle It's obvious she knows nothing about guns. Her saying she owns a Glock is like saying she drives a Ford. She's a chameleon trying to be everything to everyone. All she is doing is showing how desperate and fake she is. God help us if she wins next month. Gun-toting Glenn in Nampa. Our friend, the elite clicker from yesterday, Brian, how about you just stop giving away all the money to Ukraine? Wish you safe travels to New York City. Mike in Caldwell. Thank you, Mike. On the jobs report, can you clarify what type of jobs they are? Part-time, full-time, seasonal? What sector they are? Very vague report. Well, of course. And then we wonder whether or not these are jobs being given to foreign nationals as opposed to Americans. Because you can pay a foreign national a lot less, and you don't have to give them benefits than you have to an American. And, you know, the jobs reports, of course, it's October, September. Well, stores and retail outlets and delivery people are all getting ready for what? The big holiday Christmas push. I mean, by the way, we go from, July 4th to Halloween. We don't even celebrate Thanksgiving, and then we move right to Christmas. And, you know, on one hand, we have Christmas, which is supposed to be about the birth of Christ, about a little boy that saved our souls, that righted a wrong, born in a manger. And yet we have the conflicting narrative of cinnamon spice mocha joka, gifts galore, and secular Santa. Now, look, nothing wrong with Santa, but the true spirit of Christmas begins with Christ. And like I said before, you think about all these jobs reports, and remember it was supposed to be almost 1 million jobs, and then, it was a Greg Ferrer, Sorry about that. Nobody likes an with the jobs report. Nobody likes an when we're talking about when it comes to your home loans or mortgages or anything like that. By the way, Bo, to our friends back in Boise, Lars will join us at 9 o'clock, so that is great as well. Looking forward to catching up with Lars. But think about that for a moment. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. When you're taking a look at these jobs reports, aren't we supposed to be skeptical of the media? Wasn't the media in this country launched to question authority? Tell me, besides the media that we have on this program, besides Fox News, besides Newsmax, besides the Daily Caller, Red State, and others, tell me what media really questions authority. The last time the media did something was to pull the coup on Joe and then to embrace the Queen. Think about that. I mean, Joe Biden was literally thrown out. And now Joe is heck bent on saying that Kamala was with him the whole time. He's really trying to tank her campaign, but the fact that people are buying this is just utterly crazy. I know you're not crazy. Brothers and sisters, we continue on. Don't forget our friends at Beacon Plumbing. They say, stop freaking, call Beacon today. Good from the cold. We are broadcasting from New York City, 1 UN Plaza. And I don't know what else to say except here's Dave Petzo, who joins us now on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Dave.
Kevin, I'm glad you're alive. I know it sounds like you're struggling a little bit there, but, you also made it from the airport to the Union Square, and you're alive, and that's good. We love you. You stay safe in this dangerous town.
Well, I will tell you, it was a little bit more dangerous with the cold that I was battling, and I almost didn't make it because I was just sick over the weekend. And, let's start with our great friend Dave Petzo with Money Matters, with something that maybe it doesn't impact a lot of us, but, when we go on a trip, flying used to be cool. We always go back to that movie Catch Me If You Can, where people would dress up to fly, and now the airlines, it's all overbooked, it's all packed to the rims, it's all whatever. The flight to Minneapolis was great, it was a new airline. The flight in from Minneapolis to New York City was an old one, and it was just whatever. And it's almost, when it comes to the airlines, to me it seems like you don't get what you pay for anymore. The costs have gone up, and I suppose the service is good, but you don't get those quality improvements that you get in other places. So we haven't talked about the state of the airline economy in quite some time, since really the pandemic, when the government, when Dave Petzo and Kevin Miller were bailing out the airlines. So when you take a look at the airline industry as a whole, what do you make of it?
Kevin, it's a really tough industry, and you see ones that have done very well with an incredible model, tried to have fun with flyers. We've all been on planes where they crack jokes. That's Southwest, right? And it was kind of fun. It was introducing the middle class and the lower middle class to being able to fly with frequency, if you will. That was really the last period of an airline doing well. And that was through the 80s and 90s. And we have seen all of them struggle. United Airlines has gone bankrupt twice. I'm pretty sure American has. We all know Trump Airlines, Eastern, all these others just went bye-bye. It's a very difficult industry. Now, having said that, there are some niche players popping up, and I'm much more hopeful that we're seeing where people will say, I'll pay a little bit more, and I really would like to have some room. Now, there are more regional carriers, things like that, and we'll see if that gets anything anywhere. But the average person is, you're right, it's less space, and they talk about it. Well, you can get this much, you can get 4 inches more if you pay $100 more. Well, that's not much, but $25 an inch sounds like a lot, but okay, it is what it is, and these airlines are full. That tells me how difficult it is. They're filling them up, the prices are going higher, and the airlines are not full of cash. It is an incredibly difficult industry to stay, if you will, profitable and on top. Now, Kevin, you're right. Is there room for somebody to have improvement? Let's see if somebody can just show what a better time is, not just to the frequent flyers, but to the masses. And I think you're going to see somebody that starts to rise above, and people will pay a little bit more for a little bit better experience.
Is that possible these days? Because you have the big airlines, they're on to the regional game, so they try to undercut them.
They are, and Kevin, you're absolutely right. But all that's true is to say, if we do remain free, and I know freedom is being constrained everywhere in the world, we will see capitalists rise from that and try something new. What I'm afraid we've seen in the airline industry is a complete lock-in of incompetent executives that all think the same, do the same, and have absolutely no thinking outside the box. What I really think it needs to happen is they, not just bring in the consultant that knows everything about the airline industry, and here's how you do it, and you sell the seats this way, and you have this many miles. They all act the same. I think there's room out there. I got to believe there is for a new JetBlue. Now, JetBlue was booming, and then they fell apart. And again, probably because they started acting like a big airline again, and they weren't ready for that. So I think that there's room out there for creativity, and I don't have the answer. I'm just saying that the answer really in any industry that's as stale, dated, horrible as the airline industry, and very difficult, is ripe for somebody else to come in and blow it to pieces and do something different and dominate and make a lot of money doing it. So I think that there's hope, but there is never hope when the board is always full of the same people. I don't care if they're diverse, because that's just nonsense. But I'm talking about people that are all in the industry, and they're hiring people in the industry. We need some outsiders to come in and see if we can't do something really amazing and creative. It doesn't mean you just go wild and you hire crazy kids to make crap up. I'm talking about people that are thinking outside the box, and that's what I think the airline industry really needs.
Indeed, our great friend Dave Petzo joining us here on KIDO Talk Radio. Why haven't home interest rates gone down now that the Fed has lowered the rates?
Great question, and that really broadens it out to say this, Kevin. I know you don't know the answer, so I'm just going to say this. What was, really, it's a redundant question here. What were interest rates on the 10-year Treasury, which controls everything in the world, prior to the Fed's rate cut? Okay, they were in the mid 3.5, 3.6. They're over 4 today. So cutting rates does not affect those rates. The idea that we're going to cut rates is what actually drives those rates down. They got driven down, rates were being cut, fine, and then the market said, fine, but we still may have inflation. Fine, but the economy is not dying out here, and costs are still higher. Am I really willing to give the government my money for 10 years for basically right at the inflation rate? And the answer is, no, I don't think so. And so 3.5 has now gone to 4. Kevin, that's what affects, to your question, mortgage rates. Why are they up from when the Fed did that? Because interest rates are higher. The Fed does not control mortgage rates. I know that's what everybody wants to believe because it makes economics easy, because then they can just follow the Fed. They can go, oh, that's what's happening. That's what happened. And A plus B equals C every time, except it never does. And then we always wind up with a more complicated economy where the Fed cannot drive everything. But we always want to go to the common denominator that is the easiest thing to explain. All the news does it. Even business news does it. The NBC babbles all day, all night about what the Fed's going to do next, as if corporate profits really don't matter to what's going on in the stock market. So I'm not blaming anybody. It's just a lack of understanding that the average person has, and that interest rates are controlled by the market, not by the Fed. Now, the Fed does control short-term rates, so let me rephrase, but they do not control the 10-year. Therefore, they don't control mortgage rates.
Dave Petzo joining us here on KIDO Talk Radio. Let's talk a little bit about the presidential race. Your thoughts from a purely economic perspective.
Purely economic. Again, I've said this before. All I can do is actually believe Kamala Harris's record, what she has said all the time, because she does not have a plan. So I don't know what she's going to do now, but she mumbles about moving to the center. Of course, that's just mumbling, as Bernie Sanders says. Don't worry about it. She hasn't changed. She just needs to do this to get elected. So I'll go ahead and go with that and say what she believes in is big government, that the small business is not capable of doing anything, and so we can't rely on small business. We can't rely on entrepreneurs, and we need more regulation. And so we need higher taxes. And we don't believe in basic economics, which is throw more sand in the engine and you get slower economic growth. It's okay because we can govern. We are smart. I've never run a business before, but that's what I know. That isn't going to work very well. So as the honest answer is, Kevin, if Kamala Harris is our president, it's way more than what is going to happen to the institutions that really destroy business with regulation. They're going to expand. It's also, of course, we all know the Justice Department, all that thing. Then these guys win. It works to censor people. All of those things are frightening, but also the economy is going to be in real trouble. And I know all the other things that people talk about going on all over the world. It's a problem. So we have crazy, or we've got crazy dumb, which is Kamala, and crazy bad, which is Kamala. So I'll take crazy every day. And that crazy has had a record of being much more business friendly, economically friendly, regardless of what the media, the leftist media wants to make up. We all know the numbers. We'll go ahead and believe our own lying eyes. The grass is green. The sky is blue. It really is, no matter what the Democrats say.
And yet you have people buying into that cult of personality. Remarkably weird to me, Kevin. I don't know, but I don't understand people that believe what's going on online, that's what people's lives really are, no matter what people say. People actually, go, rent a fuselage for a day and change clothes to have different seasons, pretending they disappear on their private jets to different places. Weird. But this is not how people, I just don't get it. I don't get the cult of personality. It is something that is just, I get the cult of competence, of humility, of people that just go about doing the business of living, raising families, and
helping out in their communities. It's just that's really America. That's us in flyover country. But I don't understand this worship of human beings that are just like all of us, completely flawed, and are certainly not capable of knowing all things. And people govern their own lives just fine. The masses really do well. If we're left alone, weirdly, we tend to make, broadly speaking, the right decision. The collective is smarter than the individual. It always is. It's a funny thing. The way markets move has taught me also that it's not just the markets, it's the economy. It's the whole group thought. And I don't mean group think. I don't mean stupid group think, but people acting on their own behalf collectively is smarter than individuals planning. And so that's it's just really pretty obvious, and I wish we would live that way because it is more freedom, but it's also a better economy and a better life.
Our great friend Dave Petza joining us here on KIDO Talk Radio. Today is Amazon Prime Day, I guess one of several throughout the year. What do you make of that, Dave Petza? I'm looking at this book here by George Stephanopoulos. It's usually $35. Today it's $17 on Amazon Prime. Is this a good thing? And you've covered Amazon for years. Are you amazed at how Amazon has really rewired stuff? I'll tell you a story. I was at this comedy club last night, the Comedy Cellar in New York, and I was fascinated by one of the comedians talking about, let's go back 10 years when you looking into the future, and you thought your phone would be able to do this, and you would have people delivering it. It wouldn't come on a spaceship, but it would come by people, and all the remarkable changes. And we have to go to Amazon, which didn't they used to just start it off by selling books? Yeah, it is crazy. It is. It's something to, it really since 2020, or 2000, since 2000, and we had the tech blow up, right? Everything that didn't really make any sense at all. Just a bunch of hot money chasing the new IPO. We all know that. It was an real fiasco, and the average investor really got crushed. They really, really got crushed. So it was something during that time. But Amazon, by just a fingernail, survived. And we remember back then, too, Cisco was the largest company in the world by far. I don't think they're in the top 50 anymore. And you look at how massively that's shifted. So many of those companies are literally gone, merged out. But Amazon hung on as a bookseller and then finally did some music and some other things, and then they took off. But what really did it for them was their web services. And so they were able to take all the cash flow from the web services, undercut everybody else, and build out this empire of, you order stuff, it's there on your porch the next day, and which is stunning, of course, in its own right. And they've done that 20 years, Kevin. It's just amazing. Absolutely stunning. Your memory is good. Well, and I'm looking at these. I mean, Dave, as someone who analyzes these things, and I don't want to put you on the spot here on KIDO Talk Radio, which I never do. Are you still not an Amazon Prime member, or have you joined the team yet? I had to. You know what? You know what happens when you get married? You do things that you don't do before. I was waiting for that. I knew that someday I was going to have to admit that I have joined the Death Star. I'm part of the union. And so I'm sure my bride will be getting online and buying George Stephanopoulos' book because we're such big admirers of his. And we've been waiting for the discount that Prime might offer us. It's an exciting day for us. Yes. Yeah. So, but you have people. Well, and Dave, but you have people that this is a big event for them, and just the brilliance of Amazon just creating this whole economy. Well, it does, and I'm going to speak to that brilliance because here's the thing that nailed it. Okay, she was able to put up with my don't do the Death Star thing. Okay, but when it came to Thursday Night Football, that's it. If the Seahawks are on, I'm getting it. It's like, that's it. Okay. And guess what? We still have.
from the Seahawk game a year ago. We still have it. Brilliant. They were brilliant.
It's fascinating, though, that now and again, right here on KIDO Talk Radio, we have somebody that started by selling books that now they outspent Warner Brothers Discovery to get the NBA, to get the NFL. This whole digital smigital economy that is so different from primarily what the boomers and the World War II generation and really the Generation X people grew up in, but you have the millennials and you have the Gen Z people and the people after them that this is as normal as you and I getting unleaded gasoline.
It is. You're absolutely right. This is normal, and I think that. But also, it was magic. What has happened since the iPhone was invented less than 20 years ago is magic. And this is just like sorcery magic. It's bizarre how far technology's come, and I think we just take this all of this, as for granted. Because, you and I don't as much because we lived in an era where, you had to dig ditches and you had to do these things as you were starting out. And now you live in your parents' basement and you play video games in your spare time. And somebody, some immigrant is mowing your parents' yard. It is a weird world we're in, and very self-absorbed. And I think that it misses a little bit of the awe of when I see the video characteristics, for example, I don't play video games, but when you see them, you just go, oh my goodness, this is unbelievable. It's so lifelike. It's amazing. I think all that stuff taken for granted it misses the magic of what technology has done.
More coming up next with Dave Petzo, Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. World, you've been to New York and Chicago and all these places. What's it like to hang with these people? Because I'll tell you, here at the United Nations, it's a very different vibe than Homedale.
Yes, it is. It's a very different vibe. I enjoy it. Both of us enjoyed our last trip to New York, and we only spent a day. We were on a cruise there, but coming into the harbor at dawn and leaving at night was awe-inspiring. And we all knew as we're looking over the Statue of Liberty, all lit. And it's also sad. The Uber driver was talking about all the crime on the way in, because I was just asking questions, big surprise, about what people felt about their what has happened to their city. And, it is sad to see what has happened, because this is an amazing place, and it is where our ancestors came through. So we all have ties to New York. So it is a different vibe. I'm sad to see, but I am also an optimist that I think things cycle. And I think that we will see another Rudy Giuliani come clean up the city. And I had hopes for this current mayor, but obviously either this is political witch hunt or he's not really a good guy, and maybe a little of both. So we'll have to wait and see how this all comes out. But he's certainly no Rudy Giuliani. The city is still a mess.
Well, a lot of people are resigning from his administration. However, before we get to this breaking news on TikTok, back to the vibe, though, that, I'm sitting here literally at the United Nations, and there's diplomats in this hotel, and they're at such a unique level that most of us don't understand, and I certainly don't understand the vibe with, they're actually, the embassies are here, and we always talk about the United Nations in an abstract, but I'm seeing it in the concrete. But when you take a look at how blessed we are to live in Idaho, and then you have people that they're such a specialist at their job, they probably have never gone to a park, maybe in a city, but actually been to the mountains. I mean, the difference between our way of life and people, in a Chicago, in a New York, in a Los Angeles.
You know, Kevin, it is, and I think you lose perspective. I know I do. I really do, and I certainly haven't lived in a cocoon and not been able to go out into the world and into the mountains. But there's times when you don't go, and I notice this when I go up to the polybemus in the middle of the wilderness area, that it's like you just have to dial down and slow down. Your self-importance is gone. And that's a grand thing, to lift all that pressure off of oneself and to just enjoy the beauty that is there and the peace. And then we also have all these floaters that come in, and they're from all over. And sometimes you enjoy having a conversation, and they want to know about this place. How is this here? And all those things that are amazing. And they're from Connecticut or they're from somewhere else. And this is their first time in the mountains. And I can't imagine that the gift we have of being so connected to the world because we live in Idaho. And it is something you and I talk about all the time. In fact, I think you brought it up last week, talking about this French company asking the question, why Idaho? Why is everybody moving here? And it's a magic place. And we can take it for granted unless we go to the mountains and we see it and feel it. We can certainly take advantage of that. And I do feel sorry for people. I really do. That are, flying around the world, but are never really in connection with the world. And that's not a good thing either for them.
Dave Petzo, the week ahead, what should we be looking out for, sir?
Well, believe it or not, we're finally starting on some earnings on Friday. We'll hear from the banks, the big banks, and then leading into next week. I know we're going to hear a lot of babble about interest rates. We're going to hear a lot more babble about China because they're trying to inject money in. We all know that that's what the average person thinks, that you can fix the economy by just throwing more government money at it. And the answer is no, that's not how it works, and it won't work. China will get a short-term stimulus, and then they'll be standing there just like we did in the 1930s, watching the economy not catch on. We dug a hole, we built a great dam, we did all these things, but then there is no real economy there to drive it. So once again, that's what's going on all over the world right now. And Kevin, we're all sitting around waiting for Israel to do something. I know they will, and we're not going to help them because Jojo just doesn't. I don't know what his plan is for anything, honestly, or whoever's running the country. I don't know what their plan is. So it is a very weird world where we sit around and wonder about it for oil. Does that mean we're going to have Middle East oil is going to slow down and prices have already come up a little bit? Does that mean they're going to go up more? That's the kind of babble that's going on right now, Kevin, until we get to the election. And the election will define a number of industries moving forward. So right now it's that, and in the coming weeks it'll be earnings, and then we'll be all shut down until the election's done.
Dave Petzo, Money Matters, Saturdays 8 to 10. We appreciate you, sir. Thank you.
Appreciate you, Kevin. Hey, feel better, and we'll look forward to hearing you back home next week. Thanks.
Thank you, Dave Petzo. Don't forget our friends at Beacon Plumbing. They say stop freaking and call Beacon. Let's get you to work safely.
In. Why don't we know if they've been convicted of a crime in another country? It's broken. He will crack down on it. She will not. And
you just perpetuated the same lie that Donald Trump has been saying for 8 years, that we're letting in violent people. We are letting in people, and this group of people who are coming in, most of whom are coming for economic opportunity, commit crimes at a lower rate. I'll just keep saying it, a lower rate than people who were born here. That's the reality.
Is that why you want to keep the violent ones?
You could make a non-racist argument about immigration control, and I'd be receptive to hearing it.
You can make an honest argument about what you're saying. You're saying we have to keep the violent people because of the economic people, and that's not true.
I don't remember saying that at all.
You just said
Donald Trump has made the racist argument since day one. Since 2016, he has said this again and again. I'm sure I can't say the word he described, some S-hole countries. Those were countries in Africa. Those were countries with brown-skinned people. Then he said, how come we can't have more immigrants from Norway, like the whitest country on the planet? And you're going to say that there's no race inflection here, that this is just, I'm worried about crime? Come on. You know better, and you should know better.
If you're an immigrant whose name is Joseph, you're...
By the way, here we have the big argument on CNN, and CNN is pretty much, I guess, degenerated into crash TV. Well, Kevin Miller, why are you having this on KIDO Talk Radio? Because it's a fascinating discussion of the counter-narrative of our own conservative beliefs of law and order, of immigration. I mean, the Border Patrol came out with, 13,000 killers that have been brought in, 30,000 rapists that have been brought in, people on the terror watch list have been brought in. And if you mention those things, you're a racist. And Kamala Harris herself has said that she wants to secure the border. And yet here we have this argument again and again and again. And in reality, Harris has really ruined the country along with Biden.
You're Jose, you're not. The point is that the discrimination to discriminate in terms of distinguishing who's violent and who's not ends up being, ironically, inadvertently, you wink, wink, tethered to race and to the immigration policy that is premised upon denying the legitimacy of American status to these people. Why is it that we got to pick them out in terms of you're violent because you're Mexican, you're violent because you're Dominican, you're violent because
couldn't we just have a better system where we're able to maybe check?
We tried. Donald Trump killed the
but you all sitting at the table can't
There was a bipartisan bill.
People across the country. We have no idea who they are.
Again, are we going to export a bunch of white guys who would kill us?
Michael, we're going to have to go here, but, you know, again, with a lot of these arguments, you're making an articulate argument, Donald Trump is saying that they're poisoning the blood, that they have bad genes. Those are...
I don't think he said they have bad genes, but he is talking about people coming into this country that are here and that are criminals and that we are under siege. And here where we are in New York City, you have luxury hotels that are being filled up with people that are here illegally. And the best thing the Democrats can offer is a guy that has called himself a knucklehead as the number two.
Look, we get to turn the page on that, and I plan on waking up on November 6th with Madam President, and
He plans on waking up with Madam President. What about Mrs. Walls?
I want to be clear. You won't be waking up together. No, unless you guys have gotten closer than we thought.
I have a problem about not being specific with my language, so thank you for that. Specifically.
And there we have Jimmy Kimmel doing his very best to help Tim Walz, but you heard him. Now remember, this is the guy that said he was friends with school shooters. I know, Kevin Miller, we all know that he meant school shooting victims, but he didn't correct himself. And Jimmy Kimmel had to bail him out when he said he was going to wake up sleeping with the president. Not very family friendly when you're thinking about these things, is it? Phone numbers here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Ron Grant joins us now to talk about how to keep your money safe on KIDO Talk Radio.
Paid for by Ron Grant, your safer money specialist.
Good morning, Ron.
Good morning. How are you doing today?
Great. Ron, the world is in turmoil. How can you build that wall around your money? The good wall.
Hey, the good wall. That's what we want to do. You know, Kevin, I meet with a lot of new people each and every day, and I got to tell you, most people are going to outlive their money for three reasons. Number one, they didn't start early enough. Number two, they didn't put enough away. But number three, they stayed in risk too long. What do we know about risk? Stocks, bonds, mutual funds, variable annuities, etc. You know, the longevity planning is important. And, of course, the Stanford Center of Longevity has talked about people living 30 years past retirement. And that's scary because if you don't have an income stream to live on, how are you going to live? You know, my clients and I sleep at night knowing that we get a guaranteed lifetime income that we can't outlive, unlike the traditional retirement plans that they don't offer that. So it's important now more than ever to get that money in a safer place and get that lifetime income.
Ron, how do you do that?
It's simple. You know, we put our money in a safe insurance-backed product. When the market goes up, we get a chance to go up with it. But when the market drops, we don't lose. And every year there's a gain, we lock it, and we go one way, and that's up. And it's beautiful. That's where my money is. That's where my clients' money is. We want to make sure that it's safe and guaranteed so you can take care of yourself and your family in retirement.
And Ron, when you talk to people, I mean, they contact you on the number, the website. How does that work?
Well, they can go to the website. It's a good educational website. There's articles there that they can read. There's videos there that they can take a look at. And then they can email me from the site. And that's safermoneyspecialist.com. Or they can call me right here in the Treasure Valley. Let's have a conversation on that longevity planning. 208-660-1372.
Ron Grant, thank you very much.
Thank you, buddy. Have a wonderful day.
Paid for by Ron Grant, your Safer Money Specialist.
You know, earlier we were talking on KIDO Talk Radio about, remember the old days when Joe Biden was the president? And we thought that, you know, there are a lot of jobs that we may not think that are very challenging. Like this morning. And if you don't know, we're here at we're at 1 UN Plaza. And it's not like we're here on a diplomatic mission for Idaho. We're here as part of radio's biggest show. That's what they call it. The National Association of Broadcasters Marconi Awards for the 4th year in a row. Our show, your show, has been nominated as the best show in the country, Final Four, the best talk show in the country, because we're competing against people in country radio and all sorts of things. So we're always trying to find a place to stay. So we're here where we have the world's greatest diplomats, the world's greatest diplomats. So it's kind of like I said, a culture shock. So this morning, I'm looking at the lady who's running the general store downstairs. And there are two people, and both of them do their jobs excellently. There's one person who runs the lounge. They call it the Ambassador's Lounge. And everybody's dressed to the nines. And, you know, you wait your turn and da-da-da-da-da, very orderly. And I wanted a cup of coffee. And she goes, we don't do that here. You're better off going to the little store, and you'll save some money. And I go, okay, thank you. And so I go to the store, and we're in line, and it's something you would see out of the episode of Seinfeld or something of that nature, where you have all these very unique people, some people that are here like us, middle-class folks that chose this hotel. Why? Because it's very safe. I mean, you're around the most secure building outside of the capital in the country. And then you have people that are diplomats, like real-life diplomats, that the Turkish embassy is a block down and all sorts of things. So they're doing diplomatic things. And you have this woman behind the register that is like doing such an excellent job of trying to explain to people, you know, that you can get this and this, and you charge it to your room, and it takes off the taxes. And I go, wow, that is a brilliant job. And so many times we don't give people in the service industry our respect. Of course, we demand it, but we never really reciprocate it. Maybe I'm not talking about you. Maybe I'm talking about me. You know, all of a sudden, where's my pound of radishes? I know, pound of radishes. Yeah, it's a new diet I'm trying. But the point I'm trying to make here is that that's a complicated job to do it well. Now, remember, Joe Biden couldn't run a register. I don't think I could run a register or, you know, do the POS system, the point of sale system. I think Tim Walz is to the point where I don't know how competent he is. Just based on the statements that he said. Remember, he said he went to war when he didn't. He said he was a command sergeant major when he wasn't. And now, I mean, he called himself a knucklehead. He said he was friends with school shooters. He's very cringeworthy. And the other night on Jimmy Kimmel.
Look, we get to turn the page on that. And I plan on waking up on November 6th with Madam President. And then
I want to be clear. You won't be waking up together. No, unless you guys have gotten closer than we thought.
I have a problem about not being specific with my language, so thank you for that. Specifically right.
Yeah. More coming up next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Morning.
Yes, sir, Kevin. Hey, I just want to get everybody back home an update down here. It looks like Georgia Power has about 98% of its customers back on, and the winds definitely came through here, just ripping these trees straight from the ground, uprooting them. And for those who don't know, these trees are 60, 70 feet tall, pine trees. They range from about 1 foot to 2 foot in diameter. But what I've been talking to some of the locals down here, what happened was they got approximately 6 to 8 inches of rain the day before the winds hit. And so they had the flooding, the winds, then the power kind of went out. But people were trapped. The trees came down across the interstate, on ramps, off ramps, back roads. And one old timer said he spent 45 minutes and got 3 miles cutting trees out. So the real thing, and people are slightly bracing here for the next one, Milton, fixing to hit tomorrow. But yesterday we got about 1,200 people on and 2 little jobs. So we're making headway, but it looks like we might be on to the next one.
And where would that be?
We could go to North Carolina. They still need help up there for sure. They have a lot more devastation as far as land movement, like the topography has completely changed. They may very well move us to Florida right now, because if we don't have track machines, we aren't getting to many places in North Carolina. And that's kind of the issue they're running into, is that the equipment that we have to get there, you can't fly it in. Well, you can, but you have to have a road of some sort. But track machines, track diggers, track buckets are the only way people are getting anything over there. But here, we didn't move probably more than 5 mile radius, and between my crew and the other 4 crews here, just from my company, we turned on probably 3,000 people with my company yesterday. But there's hundreds of contractors down here between arborists and cleanup and linemen, and everybody's just doing whatever they can. But it just takes time. You know, these people down here, they're so gracious to us, and all I can say is I'm sorry and thank you for their patience, because it seems like it takes forever. But it's just manpower and material. Material's been a big issue. We can't get the material we need to get a transformer so they can get them power. So between the ports shutting down and the vast area of everything, all the utilities are hurting for that. And some utilities are donating other materials that will work for now to other utilities just so they can get the material. But it's flattening out here in North Georgia, just outside of Augusta. And, got one hitting tomorrow.
Well, how concerned are you about your safety since the next one's coming in?
I'm not too concerned being this far north. I'm right on the South Carolina border. But it looks like Tampa Bay, maybe Jacksonville, the peninsula or the panhandle of Florida and South Georgia are going to get it. And I've seen them before, these hurricanes. Sometimes they'll hit, especially coming from the east, they'll hit that west coast of Florida and not go through Florida, but they'll turn up and head north to into Georgia and South Carolina. So we are kind of mentally preparing for that. We've been staying in a man camp, which looks like an army base, with thousands of trucks, thousands of people. And if we got to stay there a few more nights, we will. But just kind of trying to figure out where they need us next, and go from there.
Jason, please call us tomorrow. Thank you, and God bless you, sir.
Yes, sir. I'll do my best, Kevin. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Jason from Idaho, now in Georgia. Joining us now, our great friend Lars Larson. He is on one coast and I am on the other. Lars is somewhere in America and I'm hanging out here in the United Nations. Lars, good morning.
Good morning. You're in the heart of darkness. Good. Maybe you can do some good back there because that building is full of thugs and dictators and a few decent countries, but not the majority of them, sad to say.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's an interesting vibe here because you have like real America and then you have, and you and I have both been in D.C. We've both, covered things from the White House, but it's a different element here when you have all these folks that, we joke about international diplomacy, but they can relate more to, some type of tariff here and there than, the price of potatoes in Idaho.
Yep. And unfortunately, there are people who look to the UN for solutions. I would challenge those people. Show me one place where the UN has actually supplied real solutions to a problem, and I'll show you about a dozen places where they've actually made the problem worse.
Well, Lars, here we are, less than a month away. Speaking of the problem, what do you make of the pundits saying it's over?
Well, I'm not going to declare it over, and I don't want people to get overconfident because I don't think that's ever a good idea in elections. But I think the tide is beginning to turn. And I think when I say the tide, that sounds like something that naturally goes in and out. There's a natural ebb and flow. I think what happened was Democrat voters were presented with a candidate. They were told by all the media she's the best thing since sliced bread, why she's an Indian woman, she's a black woman, she's a woman, and she's a nominee of a major party, and you should love the idea that she's going to do a fantastic job. Oh, and by the way, don't hold her responsible for anything she did as part of the Biden-Harris administration, and she did everything she could to distance herself from her tenure as Joe Biden's VP. And Joe, I think, actually is trying to subtly sabotage her. And I think it couldn't happen to a nicer guy or gal for Joe to say, I'm not happy about being kicked to the curb, so guess what? I'm going to connect her to everything I've done, even though he knows that the result of that is going to be people saying, hold on a second, you were part of what has happened to me and my family for the last 3.5 years? I don't want to vote for you. And Kamala Harris wants to do everything she can to say, I'm not Joe. And she's literally said those words during some of her speeches and in answering questions. I'm not Joe, and I'm not part of that. She is part of that. And when she says from day one, I'll be fighting for this, that, or the other thing, fact is, day one came 3.5 years ago for her, and she did nothing for 3.5 years, or she made the problem worse. And she's now starting to get her comeuppance. She's doing all these non-serious interviews. She goes on a sex show that, Kevin, I never heard of this, Call Her Daddy show, but apparently it's very popular, and it's mostly about giving women advice about how to have sex. About different sexual techniques and things like that. And I don't think I'm disparaging the show by saying that. It is what it is, and apparently a lot of women like listening to it. And apparently they got more negative reaction than positive reaction when all of a sudden the show's host decides to go political, which is apparently not where the show goes, and say, hey, I'm going to put this politician on, and then I'm not going to ask her any hard questions. And she could have asked some hard questions. I'll get to the 60 Minutes interview in a second. But think about this, Kevin. What hard questions could you have asked Kamala Harris? Would you mind telling us about the techniques you used to get your first 2 positions in politics, your first 2 appointments to commissions? And that would be having sex with a married man and having an affair with a married man. And so you slept your way into your first 2 positions. It would seem like that would be an appropriate thing to talk about. Apparently that never came up on this women's sex show, Call Her Daddy. I think it's, did I get that right? It's Call Her Daddy, isn't it, Kevin? I know you're not a regular listener. I suspect you're not a regular listener.
Yes, I think it's called Call Me Daddy.
Call Her Daddy,
because I study the marketing. This is This is the big Barstool Sports stuff. And look, Lars, if you want to sell your soul and sell smut and go on the podcasting, great. But there's a lot of people that are of decent folks. And I love your point about what makes that show as popular as it is and morally repugnant is it's not about politics. So the boomerang effect. Now she's going to go on with Howard Stern.
Let me throw
all
a couple
things
more things in that would have fit in that interview, Kevin. Think about this. Kamala, you're now married to a man named Doug Emhoff. We were told during the hashtag #MeToo movement that all women who make an accusation should be believed. Well, a former girlfriend of Doug Emhoff says, and apparently did this in public, slapped her so hard it spun her around. What should we do with men who slap women in any circumstances? That would be a good question. That was never asked. How about this? Doug Emhoff apparently ruined his first marriage by having sex with the family's nanny and getting the nanny pregnant. That would seem like an appropriate one for a show like that, to say, what do you do when your husband starts having sex with the nanny and gets her preggers? And but that never somehow came up at all. So it seemed as though there were questions that could have been asked. Instead, they went in an entirely different direction to try and make her look as good as possible. She's then going to go on the Howard Stern show, again, a show that's not mostly about sex, but there's a lot of sex in it. I've just never understood Howard's show, and I never got it, so hold that against me if you want to. But she's going on Stern's show. Stern is totally in love with the Democrat Party and its candidates and Kamala Harris, and she can expect some light treatment. But then she did the 60 Minutes interview, and I'm going to be running some sound bites from that interview in tonight's show because they just came out yesterday, and she doesn't have answers. Bill Whitaker acquitted himself reasonably well, even coming from CBS, the network that highly slanted the vice presidential debate in favor of Tampon Tim, the guy who put tampons in the boys' room in Minnesota, if that's something you want to make your calling card, and they slanted that debate very much against J.D. Vance and very much in favor of Timmy. And so she goes on 60 Minutes and just looks like an idiot. Whitaker had to ask her over and over again, was it a mistake to make all these changes at the border that resulted in a quadrupling of the number of people illegally entering America? He says, this problem's been around for a long time. And Whitaker says, well, that's why I'm asking. When you know the problem's been around for a while and it's brought to its lowest level under Trump, credit to Whitaker for mentioning that, and then you come in and make all these changes and the numbers quadruple, well, we've changed that now. Well, how about changing it 3.5 years ago? She never answers that, and she says the Congress must act for us to really take control of this problem. That is categorically untrue. And do you know how I know it's untrue, Kevin? Because Donald Trump brought about one of the lowest levels of illegal entry to this country in modern American history. So how did he do it? With the laws already on the books. How did Joe Biden and Kamala Harris undo it? By reversing the policies of the Trump administration and creating this tsunami of illegal aliens, which now Kamala Harris says we can only fix this by having action by Congress. Trump fixed it without Congress. Why can't you get it done? You know what she's also, and the other constructive lie is this, Kevin, when she says we've now reduced the number of illegals coming in. Do you know how they reduced the number? They waved a magic wand and said, we're going to declare a whole bunch of these people that are coming across. We're going to grant them humanitarian parole, temporary protective status. That's the Haitians. We're going to just change the name that is put on people who come in. If you just walk across the border, you're here illegally. If you take this little CBP app on your smartphone and say, I would like asylum, and you punch that into your cell phone, all of a sudden you turn from an illegal alien to somebody who has legal status, except not really, because you're going to come into the country claiming asylum, and if and when your case ever comes to court in 5 or 10 years, they'll find you didn't have justification for asylum, but you're already here. So what are they going to do with you? They're going to let you stay, and she knows that. All they've done is redefine those entries as, those are all legal entries, and that's how they brought the numbers down. Not because they're holding people back at the border. They're just saying we've declared all these people to be legally in the United States. Does that make sense, Kevin?
No, not at all. I mean, it's obviously the bait and switch. Let's get to the Walz Vance debate. What did you think of that?
Number one, biased all day long. They could have asked Tim a lot of tough questions. They didn't. The CBS had vowed we will not fact check anything, and then they promptly broke their rules. And J.D. Vance was right to call them out, saying CBS set the rules and said there will be no fact-checking. You're not fact-checking Walz, but you're fact-checking me, so I'm going to respond to that. I thought J.D. Vance acquitted himself well. I thought Tim Walz looked like a fool. Now, that was my impression. Did he give any answers? No. Did he explain why he's lied about his military career? No. Did they ask him about a number of things that would have been front and center issues? The border, number one. The economy, number two. The conflict in Israel that has turned into a war after a country, an actual country, is attacked by a terrorist group and the country fights back. Well, that makes total sense. Well, so why are the Democrats saying, no, Israel should not wipe out that terrorist group? Kevin, doesn't that sound absurd if you strip away the language and just say, if America were attacked by a terrorist group, would it make sense for us to fight back? Yes, and we've done it. Okay, so why shouldn't Israel be able to fight back and wipe out the terrorist group that has they didn't just attack Israel a year ago yesterday. They've been attacking Israel for years. And it would have been appropriate to ask Tim Walz as vice president. The current administration, the Harris-Biden administration, has funded Iran, which in turn funded Hamas. Should that funding be cut off? Now, Kamala Harris doesn't know much about foreign policy, apparently, or even the practical. I mean, you don't have to be a foreign policy expert to say if the Biden-Harris or Harris-Biden administration has given billions of dollars to the Iranians, and the Iranians then took those billions and spent them to pay for terrorism, and now we have a lot of terrorism, should we cut the money off? Isn't that a question that anybody could answer, Kevin?
I would agree.
And the last week,
I would totally agree with that.
I ran a soundbite. I think I ran this Friday. I can't remember precisely, but Tony Blinken, who's the Secretary of State, he was asked in an interview, well, they're spending this money on terrorism. And he turns and he tells the interviewer, he says, yeah, Iran has always funded terrorism. When they're short of money, they fund terrorism all they can. When they've got a lot of money, they fund terrorism all they can. And you say, well, okay, so that if you give money to this person, this entity, Iran, they're going to fund terrorism. I mean, it kind of reminded me, sadly, I had a friend who was a very great author. She's passed away now, but she had a son named Andy, and Andy was a drug addict. And she would call me, this author, very nice lady, older lady, and she'd say, Andy's asking for money again. I said, well, you know what he's going to do with it, don't you? And she goes, yeah, he claims he wants to get, first and last and deposit for a new apartment, but I know he's going to spend it on drugs. And I said, then don't give it to him. Well, she was soft-hearted, and she would always give her son money, and she always knew what he was going to spend the money on. The same is true of Iran. We know what they're going to spend money on. So when you know that they're going to spend money on terrorism, and you give them money, and they spend it on terrorism, I hold the Biden administration, Harris in particular, because Joe's out of it, he's not calling the shots, responsible for having funded terrorism. And you say, well, hold on, you can't hold it. Yes, I can. His own Secretary of State says, we know what Iran will do with the money. They will spend it on terrorism, and they did. And so you got October 7th last year, and so you got Houthi terrorists. And by the way, have you told your audience about that stupid swap we made for the WNBA's pothead Brittany Griner? And we traded one of the biggest and baddest arms dealers on the planet back in exchange for Brittany Griner's release because she's a celebrity basketball player. Big deal. They hand this guy back, and within 2 years, he's brokering arms deals to put weapons in the hands of the Houthi terrorists who are attacking American shipping, foreign shipping, American warships. And you say, hold on, we funded that? Why did we give them money? Well, ask Joe Biden. Ask Kamala Harris. Somebody ask her a serious question.
I would agree. Lars, let's take a look at what else should we be looking out for?
Oh, you should watch to see what the public reaction is, because I think there's an old, and I can't remember who said it, that familiarity breeds contempt. not always, but in the case of Kamala Harris, they've managed to hide her from the public for 2 months. From when we first learned that she was going to be the choice of Democrats around the 1st of August to the 1st of this month, and now all of a sudden she's doing at least some interviews, and it is not going well. I mean, if she had all of a sudden showed up on 60 Minutes and looked brilliant, that'd be one thing. But I think the more the public sees of her and hears her non-answers to questions and her dodging and her evasions, even the most hardcore Democrat is probably going to say, I can't vote for that person for president. She doesn't know what's going on. And the reason it's inexcusable that she has no answers is that, Kevin, she knew these questions would be asked. I mean, God forbid, but if I had ever worked on a Democrat campaign and they said, well, we've got this interview coming up, what do you think they'll ask Kamala Harris about? I said, well, they're going to ask her about the economy for sure. They're going to ask her about the border for sure. They're going to ask her about FEMA's pathetic, almost criminal response to the first hurricane, and now we've got one that appears to be even worse that's coming right behind it. And FEMA has been lying to the American public. FEMA stole $1.4 billion of disaster relief money and spent it on illegal aliens by their own account. I'm not making that up. That comes right out of FEMA's own press releases. And in fact, I ran yesterday a soundbite of KJP, whose I think days at the White House are numbered, but the spokeswoman, Karine Jean-Pierre, spokeswoman for Joe Biden. And 2 years ago, she was bragging. FEMA is out there doing everything they can to help communities that are awash in illegal aliens. And she was bragging about it. Today, or earlier this week, she was asked, well, what about all this money that they've spent on illegal aliens? And she said, it is categorically untrue that FEMA has spent money, and FEMA is part of Homeland Security, on illegal aliens. Well, hold on a second. You told us 2 years ago you were bragging they were doing it. Now you're denying it altogether? These people can lie with a straight face. They get caught, but they can lie with a straight face.
Lawrence, final question here. What do you make of just the media trying to say that it's over, the poll numbers going a different way, and everybody in conservative media going, I don't think that's, as Lee Corso would say, not so fast, my friend.
Do you remember the polls that were absolutely certain that Hillary Clinton would be the president in 2016? Do you remember those polls? Yeah, well, I think that's where it's going. Sir. And I think if you look at the trend lines, and Musk has a pretty good read on what the trend lines are, that this is not going well for Kamala Harris. Now, remember, in about a week, ballots go out. I mean, we've given up on Election Day. It's now election month, which begins, some of it began last month. Ballots went out in mid-September. Most of the ballots that are vote by mail ballots around the country will go out in about 7 days, and because they go out 3 weeks before Election Day. And so about next Tuesday, they'll be throwing all those ballots out to people. And by the way, let me point out what Oregon just found out. Oregon found out August 1st they had a whole bunch of illegal voters registered to vote and set to get ballots. And you know what the DMV did? They didn't tell their bosses, and they didn't tell the public. The Secretary of State of the state found out 6 weeks later. Now, we're coming up on an election. DMV knows August 1, they've got at least 900 illegal voters registered to vote with a ballot that would be sent to them. They finally tell the Secretary of State in the middle of September, and she pushes and gets, not that she pushed that hard, she's a loyal Democrat, and they found 300 more. That took us to 1,200 and change. Then, just today, we found out about 300 more. So you say, well, there are 1,500 illegal voters. I always want to finish that sentence with, that we know of, because there may be a whole bunch more. Because Oregon did something that a number of states have done. They put illegal aliens, they registered them to vote. And they did it knowingly. Do you know that Oregon wasn't even looking for those illegal voters when it found them? And here's how they found them. Ironically enough, a liberal think tank group out of Chicago put in a bunch of public record requests to the Oregon DMV and said, you've got driver's licenses going to illegals, and you have automatic registration if everybody gets a driver's license. How are you keeping the illegal aliens who have a driver's license from getting signed up to vote. And they requested all these documents. That's the only reason that DMV said, well, let's take a look. And they immediately find it was 953, so I'd say almost 1,000 illegal voters. Before they found the next 600 they found in the last couple of weeks. And you say, well, hold on, you weren't even looking for this? And you were only prompted to go look because somebody asked for public records? So they weren't even policing their own voter rolls. And when they did take a look, they're now asking us to believe, well, it's only 1,500 and some, and all of them are not going to get ballots. Okay, how many more are there? Even the governor of the state, who's a far left-wing Democrat, Tina Kotek, has said, number one, we're shutting down automatic voter registration. Does that tell you there's a problem? When a Democrat who loves the idea of automatic voter registration declares we are shutting that down right now. Why? Because there's a problem. But don't worry, have faith, the election we're about to have is totally solid. I don't think so. They've been doing driver's licenses for illegals for 5 years. And what makes that even more offensive is that about a decade ago, the Oregon legislature passed a law and said we're giving driver's licenses to illegals. It passed by a 2/3 margin, which means some Republicans voted for it. And the voters immediately went out, gathered the signatures, and put it on the ballot, held the law up. When it went on the ballot, even though it had been approved by 2/3 of the legislature, it was rejected by 2/3 of the voters. And that's in a notoriously blue state, which means that even a bunch of Democrats voted no to the idea of illegal alien driver's licenses. They waited 4 years. 4 years is all they waited. And they said, let's go ahead and do it anyway. So you had a legislature that passed a law, rejected by the voters a year later, and then four years after that, doing it anyway. That's where representative government is failing right in front of us, Kevin. When the state lawmakers say, we don't give a damn what the citizens voted for, we're doing it anyway. And then on top of that, they said, oh, by the way, everybody who gets signed up for a driver's license gets signed up to vote. But we promise, cross our hearts and hope to die, we won't sign up.
Trip to Cactus Pete's now, up to 50% off, and get excited to get out again. Just search Seize the Deal, Boise.
Start your day the right way. Kevin Miller, 5 a.m. to 10 a.m., KIDO Talk Radio.
Thank you for joining us. Kevin Miller in the morning at KIDO Talk Radio. Let's go to Mark, the watchdog of Eagle. Mark, good morning. Hello, Mark.
Oh, Kevin, you're about ready to go to a break. I'm not going to have enough time to say what I need to say, so I'd like to be held over, please.
Fair enough. Mark, your wish is our command. We appreciate that. Phone numbers here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. More of your phone calls. Don't forget Clay and Buck coming up today, very, very soon, very, very soon. Today at 10, of course, for all the action of Clay and Buck. Keep it right here. Then it's Sean. Then it's Lars. Lars sounds like he has a big show. And also coming up, we're going to hear from Mark, the watchdog of Eagle. And why it got a little heated yesterday at the White House. Don't forget our friends at Beacon Plumbing. They say stop freaking, call Beacon today. Kevin Miller on your home for Fox News, KIDO Talk Radio. Eagle, good morning, Mark.
Good morning, sir. I hope you're feeling better back there. And they haven't done the awards yet, have they?
No, that's tomorrow night, Mark.
Well, good luck to you, sir, because you well deserve it, that's for sure. You know, I was listening to Lars Larson and talking about, and that's what I call it, about election integrity. You know, when I just heard what I just heard on Fox News again about how somebody like cackling Kamala, the chameleon, is ahead in the polls nationally, and about Republicans switching to vote for her. I mean, just the propaganda just never ends. You know, I'm looking at a whole list of stuff here in the past few days that has showed up. I mean, Lars Larson talked about the 1,500 illegal voters down in or over in Oregon. And what about now? Is Maria Bartiromo, is she still with Fox or not? She used to be on Fox.
She is.
Okay. This is just the other day. She asked RNC Chairman Michael Watley about, and you've already had me bring this up in other callers on KIDO, on your show, Kevin, about the Gateway pundits reporting on potential Arizona election rigging and 218,000 voter registration scandal. And, you know, this is the stuff that's going on in our country right now. We have RNC sues Fulton County, Georgia elections director for refusing to hire Republican poll workers, that only 15 Republicans hired out of more than 800 staff. I mean, it goes on and on. You got good old Tampon Tiananmen Square Tim saying how he defended in an interview with the Wall Street Journal his driver license policies to illegals, free tuition, health care for illegals, all on our dime, you know, or the taxpayer dime there in Minnesota. And by the way, did you hear how many people showed up at the Butler, Pennsylvania rally for Trump? They estimate 105,000. Now you tell me where, just like when it was Joe Biden, and they had to do camera views where they just huddled everybody that was bussed in for Biden, what did show up on the buses even, to be taken to these events. And just like Kamala, they'll bunch them into one area. The camera won't pan around to show how many are actually out there in the audience because they couldn't. They will find that she has maybe 1/10 of what Trump gets at these rallies. Now, here's another one for you. Majority very or somewhat concerned cheating will affect the 2024 election. That was on Breitbart. That was a Rasmussen poll, you know, that was just taken recently. So you have people being polled across this nation saying that they believe that somewhat, or there will be fraud going on again, brought to you by your CIA. FBI whistleblower alleges plan to deploy plainclothes FBI agents to Maricopa County polling stations to monitor Trump voters. Then we have, not Kamala voters, but Trump voters. Then we have the Georgia Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, who served at home in his latest lawsuit that alleges thousands of invalid registrations on his state voter rolls. Now, this is the same parasite that was the Secretary of State back in 2020, along with that little turncoat Kemp, who looks like he's trying to buddy up to Trump, but we know what he and Raffensperger did back in 2020 and how they betrayed Trump and allowed fraudulent votes to be counted. I mean, this stuff just never ends. We got a Europe being held back by whiteness claims, Soros-backed think tank. So Europe is being held back by whiteness. This is the insanity of the left. By the way, the Dominican Republic is going to deport 10,000 Haitians a week, citing excess problems with the immigration there. You got leftist school officials sued for forcing kids to share beds and showers with opposite-sex classmates. This is the type, and this is in Colorado, that their school system taken over by their liberals back there. So this is the kind of insanity that they want to bring to us. You know, and then we have, again, back in Georgia, Democrats sued to block Georgia rule requiring ballot hand counts on Election Day. So how do we have fair elections with this type of stuff going on? And not enough outcry from the Republican Party on this, because they've been hijacked. They've also been hijacked. And again, like I said earlier, I sent stuff to you here at KIDO, to your show, Kevin, about former people involved with the CIA who said they stole it in 2020 for Biden and Harris, and that they're going to do this again. I mean, so what does that tell you? Who, again, is one of the greatest intelligence agencies for overthrowing government and putting in puppet governments, the Central Intelligence Agency. They're the best out there for doing this. Okay. So where are they? Where did they come in? I remember one time, I think it was on public broadcasting or C-SPAN, where they had some kind of hearings, and they had somebody from the CIA in there who they said was, there were irregularities in the 2020 election, but he wouldn't elaborate on it. Why? Because those SOBs were behind it. And it's going to happen again. And that's my fear. We're going to lose our country totally. So that's my thoughts for today, sir. Good luck for you tomorrow, Kevin, and I wish you the best, and I hope you're feeling better, sir.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate you. Line's still open to take calls, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. That phone number's here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. We've been talking a little bit about the Kamala Harris 60 Minutes interview. Did she really answer any questions? Of course, the big topic we've been talking about is the idea that she was talking about owning a gun. And what type of gun? Well, I own a Glock. Well, what type of Glock? Well, it's a Glock. It's a Glockity-Glock. And I think what we're seeing here, and this is, we don't even want to go with the two narratives. We're just seeing this whole vibe. And it's funny how the media has portrayed it. They go back to 2016 that showed that Hillary Clinton was going to win, and you heard Lars Larson reference that. And then they go to 2020, and they go, got me. 2022, remember, where there was supposed to be a huge red wave, and because of the fallout or the Dobbs ruling or however you want to position it, poor candidates, underfunded, the Democrats manipulating the system so the easier to beat Republicans that may have been popular with the base win the primary and then they get wiped out in the general. As we saw in the swing states, that strategy played out and paid out for them. And now here we have 2024, where if you believe some of the polls, people are pulling away for Kamala. And going back to what Mark, the watchdog of Eagles, said, and I agree with him on this. If you are a Republican, the only reason why you're not going to vote for Donald Trump is because that you don't like him personally. And let's face it, Idaho politics has gotten polarizing the past few years. We have the ranked choice voting going on, the big issue that will be coming up here, and people are wondering, what are they going to do and how are they going to play it and all sorts of things. And there are some people that, look, I'm not going to vote for a Democrat, but I will say there have been some people in Idaho that I'm not going to vote for, even if they are a Republican. But they're not the president of the United States, and I wouldn't sit there and throw the thing to Kamala Harris. Tell me one thing, and you even see the ads where it's Mike Pence. Are you kidding me? They have General Milley on an ad. Why in the world would anybody listen to General Milley? General Milley was on the phone with the Chinese saying, listen, Chinese government, we're not going to attack you, and if Donald Trump says to attack you, I'm going to disobey the order. Now, I believe if you go back to the Constitution of the United States, you swear an oath to protect the Constitution of the United States, not to inform the Chinese that we're not going to attack. Now, if that's not a violation, I don't know what is. Lloyd Austin, you take a look at the Biden administration, and nobody's been fired. Mayorkas, and I love the media because they call it disinformation. It's called the truth. We've got Glenn Beck in North Carolina, other people there. Why would they lie? This is a non-political story when we're talking about hurricane relief efforts. This is a non-political story when we're talking about people that have lost everything. And now we're looking at Florida, where Kamala Harris makes these comments that Ron DeSantis isn't answering the phone. And as he points out, she's not on the, pardon me, she's not on the command structure. No, that's not a technical issue. That was my voice going. But she's not in the command structure, and she politicizes it. Now, if you believe the right, and I happen to have a tendency to believe them, that they are positioning trying to, bring everything together. The tipping point is what Malcolm Gladwell calls it, where all of a sudden it all has to hit at once, and we all believe the popular narrative. If you like what has happened in the last 4 years, then she is your person. You have the Cheneys, that have decided they're not going to support the ticket. So they might as well declare themselves Democrats, I would say. Let's go back to the phones. We always are here for you. Let's go to Concerned in Emmett with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Concerned.
Good morning, Kevin. Hey, good luck to your award. I hope you get it, like everyone's been saying you deserve it. Just want to talk about, Rob Schneider was, you know Rob Schneider, the actor. He said a thing that was just really profound, what he said, that if your hate for Donald Trump is greater than the love of this country, you got a serious problem, and that's what's going on right now, this election. And I just think about all the countries in this world, for examples, the Palestinians, they got Palestine and they gave it to them and let them have a section of the thing, but they let some corrupt government come in there and just destroy it, And then again for Lebanon, same thing, that whole area, and it was really a different nation, until they had some elections and Hamas got in there, or Hezbollah got in there and started controlling things. And this, Venezuela, there's all these countries that back and forth, you got Mexico right below us. It's just so corrupt. They let the government in. And if the people cannot see that's what we're doing here to our own country, we're allowing corruption to come in and control this country. And you're going to wish that it didn't happen, because you look at these countries, they're fighting for their freedoms. Iran, they let the Ayatollahs in, just destroys their nation. You got the whole nation that hates the government there, but, pretty much, but they're under control. And that's what's going on in the United States. This administration is controlling this government. We are in a communist, socialist type government right now. There's no doubt about it, because they dictate what we say on radios. They dictate what we say on TVs. Their agendas are pushed down. And that's what we're doing. And apparently this country, for a good half of this country, doesn't seem to get it, that this country is not worth fighting for, to sacrifice a little bit of something, give up your hate for Donald Trump for the good of the country. These people just don't do it. It's a shame. And I think the Democrats are putting them polls out there so they can cover their whatevers, to when the election, when they have to cheat it back and get it back and say, well, look, at the polls showed that she was ahead, so hey, that's what you expected. I just pray for this country, because it's apparently people are not going to wake up until they are in total have to fight for the freedom of what the United States was. These people just need to wake up. This generation has definitely lost it. I know that doesn't sound like good news, but I just keep on hoping that somewhere the Trump administration, not necessarily just Trump, his administration, the racist comments about Trump is just something else. People, oh, he's such a racist, such a racist. He's Michael Jackson used to hang around his kids. Herschel Walker was a good friend of his. It's like, what part of that do you think he's racist? When you have Carson vowing for him, there's so many blacks out there that are for Trump. How can you even say he's racist? It's just silly. They just push that agenda. It's sickening. The media has taken over this country. But I just hope things change. I hope it's all the polls are totally off, and I hope it's overwhelming. Trump gets in, because that shows the country it's back to what it should be, because this never would have took place in the 50s. These people in this administration would have been out a long time ago. People would have been arrested and thrown out, because that's what we have is a slow coup that's going on right now. But I know it's not the best conversation, but I'm just hoping America wakes up. So thank you for your show, Kevin, and just God bless it.
Thank you, Concern. Appreciate you. Let's go to Liberal Steve. Good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Ooh, hell, Concerned. I'm glad you're concerned, buddy. But it's all over. You can yakety. And Mark, God dang it, Mark, you got to slow down. You and Lars Larson, I've been trying to take notes here, and my power's been out, so I'm just kind of taking it by flashlight. So slow down a little bit, because you got some really good points, both of you. I mean, really good points that I keep writing down, and then I throw in the garbage because they never go anywhere. Oh, Lordy. we have so got this election in the bag. Is there any requests you want, Kevin, on your way back from New York or anything? You want someone to meet you there with a cup of coffee and a donut? Or
Where?
At the Boise airport.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You're going to be in Boise.
A bad cold, buddy, but if you quit sleeping with your head out the window.
You're going to meet me at the Boise airport?
Yeah. And what's with Lars Larson, man? He just, I hope people know that Sean Hannity is just opinion and that Ingram is just opinion and that neither one of those are news and that Lars is just opinion and he's not news, and that Kevin Miller is just opinion, and he's not news. But Liberal Steve, he is news, and Kamala is going to win. That's all I got to say. Just
thank you for the call, Liberal Steve. Thank you, Liberal Steve. I agree with you. You are news. You are bad news. Bad news. Let's go to Lee, who joins us now on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Lee.
Hey there. Hey, just wanted to quickly touch on Prop 1. KTVB did this little mock election with pizza and hamburgers, and it just seems so like, oh, what's the big deal? What everybody's missing, and they don't seem to be talking about very much, is do you remember back when Governor Little won the election? He won because there was such a split in the votes between Alquist and Raul Labrador. And more people voted for the other candidates combined than did for Little, but he won. And that's the way it works. But he's a Republican, and he's a conservative when you go to the...
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
Are you a victim of the timeshare trap and think there's no way out? I'm Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group, and I'm here to tell you that there is a way out. I will send you a timeshare exit information kit absolutely free, explaining how the timeshare industry works and your options for cancellation.
Get the facts. For your free timeshare exit info kit, go to iCancelTimeshare.com. That's iCancelTimeshare.com. iCancelTimeshare.com.